Chapter 774. When Shi Shanshan spoke, she had been staring at Yang Chun, as if watching Yang Chen's reaction. However, to Shi Shanshan's disappointment, Yang Chen's face did not have the slightest surprise or grief, as if all this was a matter of course. Sun Qingshue's feelings for Yang Chun were very clear to Yang Chun, and what she said was estimated to be true, but he did not know why the Blue Cloud Sect's sect master Lu made such a request. This request of Shi Shanshan was also in line with her original character. She had always been strong. If Yang Chun only had a double cultivation with her, he believed that Shi Shanshan would not have any problems, and there would not be any conditions. However, since Yang Chun wanted to bring Sun Qingxue along, and there was also his own master and senior sister, with Shi Shanshan's character, it would not be so easy to accept. Sure enough, Shi Shanshan put forward this reason unyieldingly, and Yang Chun also believed that she would not be lenient in the process of the competition. If there was a chance, she would definitely teach a good lesson to the guy who used and then abandoned. What's the matter for coming here this time? Yang Chun appeased the aggrieved Sun Qingxue, and also gave Shi Shanshan a kind smile. After attracting Shi Shanshan's stare, he asked with a smile. The two women came together, certainly not to explain this. There must be some other reasons. Master said that she wants you to see the two senior elders of the sect, to see if their injuries can be treated. Sun Qingxue did not hide anything, and directly said the sect's request. Sect Master Lu said that if you can cure the two elders, the Blue Cloud Sect is willing to give a reward. As she said that, Sun Qingxue took out a jade box from the Chinquin bag and put it in front of Yang Chun, and then said as long as you are willing to help, whether it is successful or not, the Blue Cloud Sect is deeply grateful. Here, Yang Chun has not done anything, and the Blue Cloud Sect has already sent the reward to Sun Qingxue. Looking at this tightly sealed jade box, Yang Chun suddenly had a little other idea in his heart. However, Yang Chun did not say his thoughts at this time, but turned to Shi Shanshan and asked with some doubts, does the green jade Immortal Island also mean this? Shi Shanshan nodded with a straight face. In the secret plane, the Blue Cloud Sect had two masters of the Deshang stage injured, and the green jade Immortal Island had one. There was no need to explain these to Yang Chun. Shi Shanshan also took out a sealed jade box and placed it in front of Yang Chun, but did not say much. The two major sects' methods of doing things were like this. Yang Chun has not yet agreed, and they have already sent things to the door. It seems that Yang Chun will definitely agree. Not long ago, because of Yang Chen's marriage proposal, the two major sects put forward harsh conditions. On the surface, they agreed, but secretly rejected Yang Chen's marriage proposal. Now there was such a scene, and it was still sent by Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan. The implied meaning of this was very intriguing. Yang Chun picked up the two jade boxes with a strange look and looked at them carefully. The two jade boxes were very tightly sealed, and even there was a formation engraved on them. Even spiritual awareness could not pass through, and he did not know what was inside. The two came directly to Yang Chun, and did not even send this request through the sect. There seemed to be some subtle movements in this. Suddenly, Yang Chun laughed and shook his head, which made Gao Yu and Gong Sunling, who followed him, very surprised. Even the visiting Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan did not seem to understand why Yang Chun would laugh. Sun Qingxue's face was full of doubts, and in the eyes of Shi Shanshan, there was also a trace of confusion. So that's how it is. After laughing for a while, Yang Chun stopped laughing and made such a sigh, and then suddenly said, Sect Master Lu and the Lord of Tantai still think that I, Yang Chun, am too simple? This made the women even more confused, and they did not know what Yang Chun meant. Gao Yu couldn't help but say, Yang Chun, Fairy Shi and Fairy Sun rarely come. Don't play such riddles. When the four women met, Gao Yu and Gong Sunling did not show any hostile behavior. The matter of Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan was decided by Gao Yu, and she naturally would not have any conflict. As for Gong Sunling, as long as there was Yang Chun, it was enough, and she would not care much about this. On the contrary, Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan, there was a trace of hostility at first, but it soon disappeared in front of Yang Chun. Now that Gao Yu spoke, Yang Chun no longer beat around the bush with the women, but smiled at Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan, and asked, Sect Master Lu and the Lord of Tantai, there must be other instructions, right? Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were indeed a little surprised this time. The instructions of a sect of both sides. Yang Chun could not be present. How could he know? Looking at the surprise of the two women, Gao Yu and Gong Sunling were also a little surprised. Yang Chun has been outside with Gong Sunling and has never been in contact with outsiders. How could he know that Sect Master Lu and the Lord of Tantai have other instructions? Don't say it, let me guess. Yang Chun stopped Sun Qingxue's intention to speak. At the same time, gave Shi Shanshan a calm expression and said, all the women were quiet. They also wanted to know what Yang Chun knew and wanted to know if Yang Chun's guess was right. The head of the palace personally went to propose, although for the time being, Sect Master Lu and the Lord of Tantai did not directly agree and gave two conditions that seem impossible to complete. Yang Chun narrowed his eyes as if he had seen through everything and said over there everyone thought that the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect refused, but in fact, it is not, right? Gao Yu and Gong Sunling exclaimed. They couldn't believe that this was true. Their eyes for confirmation immediately stared at the two women on the opposite side and seemed to be waiting for them to give the answer. Big Brother Yang is so powerful. Sun Qingxue's eyes were full of admiration. Plus, this sentence has completely explained that Yang Chun was not wrong. At least in terms of the attitude of the Blue Cloud sect, it was not wrong. Yang Chun looked at Shi Shanshan with a hint of ridicule, waiting for her reply. Shi Shanshan wanted to hold it. But looking at Yang Chun's eyes, she couldn't harden her heart. She just snorted coldly, but did not deny it. Since there was no denial, it showed that the attitude of the Green Jade Immortal Island was the same. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling looked at each other, and then turned to Yang Chun. Their eyes were full of tenderness and admiration. If I didn't guess wrong, these two conditions actually have a time limit, right? Yang Chun smiled and looked at Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan, and asked softly, is it when I reach the Yuanying stage, or the Deshang stage? Chapter 775. Deshang stage. Sun Qingxue couldn't hide any secrets in front of Yang Chun. As long as Yang Chun wanted to know, and it was not the kind of secret that couldn't be said, Sun Qingxue would definitely tell Yang Chun. Therefore, when Yang Chun asked, Sun Qingxue said it. Little Shui. Shi Shanshan was very annoyed watching from the side. Sun Qingxue's performance was too simple, so that Yang Chun could get the words out so easily, which made Shi Shanshan very dissatisfied. Up to now, Shi Shanshan still believed that Yang Chun did not completely guess it, but Sun Qingxue's attitude did not know where it was exposed, and Yang Chun discovered it, so he could just hit it. It seemed that the two women had unified their accounts before they came. Now Sun Qingxue fell to Yang Chun so easily. Even Sun Qingxue herself felt a little guilty. Under the gaze of Shi Shanshan, she shrunk her neck, as if she didn't dare to look at Shi Shanshan's appearance, and lowered her head. Is the Green Jade Immortal Island also in the Deshang stage? Yang Chun smiled, and looked at Shi Shanshan, still waiting for her answer. Even if the island master agrees, if you can't meet the conditions I put forward, you can't expect me to recognize you as my husband. Shi Shanshan's character could not be pulled back. Although she still did not admit defeat, she also answered Yang Chun's question. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling have been somewhat confused. What did the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect want to do? They did not refuse, but put forward two conditions that seemed to be impossible to complete at all. It was said that it was a refusal, but it was secretly set a deadline. As long as Yang Chun could reach the Deshang stage, he would let the two women marry him. What was the game? The two of them could not understand. That's a good idea. It doesn't hurt our relationship, and it can even help us in the end. It's just that it's a little delayed. Yang Chun smiled and nodded. The most important thing is to let the two sect have a very reasonable way to step down. Sect Master Lu and the Lord of Tantai are really thoughtful. At this moment, Sun Qingxue admired Yang Chun from the bottom of her heart. They didn't say much, but Yang Chun actually guessed so many things. Big Brother Yang was really unpredictable. However, the better Yang Chun behaved, the more infatuated Sun Qingxue seemed to be. Even if you reach the Deshang stage, if you can't do those two conditions, it's impossible to let the sect nod their heads. Shi Shanshan looked at Sun Qingxue's infatuated expression, and she was angry in her heart. What was so good about Yang Chun, this guy? He was just a playboy, but she still had to give him a good face. Up to now, Shi Shanshan had not given Yang Chun a smile, and she snorted coldly. Looking at Shi Shanshan like this, Yang Chun suddenly laughed, which made Shi Shanshan even more uncomfortable, and once again gave Yang Chun a cold face. However, this face looked in Gao Yu's eyes, but she couldn't help but want to laugh. If she was really angry, where would Shi Shanshan be here? The famous Cold Plum Fairy was not famous for enduring humiliation for the sake of the overall situation. In the end, there was still a little bit of love for Yang Chun in her heart. If I say that I know what is in these two boxes, do you believe it? Yang Chun took the two jade boxes in his hand and asked the two women. I don't believe it. Sun Qingxue was straightforward and said it directly. She had seen this box before, and her spiritual awareness couldn't penetrate it all. It was tightly sealed, and there was no sound when she shook it. How could she know what was inside? Shi Shanshan snorted coldly in her heart again, and there was no way for Sun Qingxue to hide anything in front of Yang Chun. However, at this time, she was also a little curious. She had seen the jade box, and she didn't know what was inside. She wanted to know if Yang Chun could guess it. Inside, there must be a medicinal pill. Yang Chun picked up the jade box of the Blue Cloud sect brought by Sun Qingxue and said with a smile, and it's a 5th-grade medicinal pill. As he said that, he didn't wait for the women to be surprised and directly opened the sealed talisman. After a flash of light, the seal on the box began to disappear. Yang Chun opened the jade box, revealing a round medicinal pill wrapped in layers of talismans. After opening those seals, a round red medicinal pill appeared on Yang Chun's palm, and the smell of medicine assailed his nose. What was the medicinal pill? No one was interested in it for the time being. Everyone's eyes were focused on the 5 obvious pill patterns on the medicinal pill. 5 pill patterns. It was obvious that this was a 5th-grade medicinal pill. Looking at this medicinal pill that shouldn't have appeared in the mortal world at all, except for Yang Chun, everyone was a little sluggish. The Blue Cloud sect proposed that Yang Chun could refine a 5th-grade medicinal pill, and then gave Yang Chun a 5th-grade medicinal pill. This really made people speechless. Yang Chun was thinking about other things. This medicinal pill was just the most common qi nourishing pill. However, after the 5th-grade refinement, it had become a rare panacea. Yang Chun was just curious, how did the Blue Cloud sect get this 5th-grade medicinal pill? In the history of the mortal world, there was no 5th-grade pill refinement master. This was recognized by everyone. So where did this 5th-grade qi nourishing pill come from? In an instant, Yang Chun thought of the descent of the consciousness of a clone. There was no such thing in the mortal world, but the heavenly court had it, and the descent of the consciousness of a clone, the Taishaman could afford to play, and the Blue Cloud sect could also afford to play. In addition to this reason, Yang Chun couldn't think of any other possibilities. The Blue Cloud sect's method of loosening the reins to grasp was indeed able to let Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace be hit first, and then feel grateful, thus firmly tying them to their chariot. It was a good method. He put the medicinal pill into the newly acquired medicine nourishing gourd. The sealed talisman had been opened. If it was not properly kept, the medicinal qi would dissipate. Although this was only a qi nourishing pill, it was a 5th-grade refining pill, but it could let Yang Chun learn a lot from it. Green Jade Immortal Island. In this box, I think, there must be something that can make me defeat you after I cultivate. Yang Chun picked up the 2nd jade box and said to Shi Shanshan. Without waiting for Shi Shanshan's reaction, Yang Chun opened the jade box directly. Unexpectedly, there were 2 things in it. One was a refined jade lamp that preserved the fire seed, and the other was a jade slip. 9 secluded core fire, 6th-grade fire seed. The Green Jade Immortal Island is really big. After seeing the fire seed, even Yang Chun couldn't help but be surprised. The 9 secluded core fire was the advanced upgraded version of the core fire that Yang Chun currently has. The grade reached the 6th grade, and it was also a 4th grade fire. Apart from the 7th grade pure Yang True fire that Yang Chun was now keeping, this was already the highest grade of fire seed. As for the Jade Slip, it recorded the method of collecting the 9 secluded core fire. For Yang Chun, this Jade Slip was actually dispensable. Relying on this, you may not be able to defeat me. Seeing this, Shi Shanshan's face still did not change, but she coldly dropped a sentence to Yang Chun. Chapter 776. The more Shi Shanshan said this, in fact, the more she expected Yang Chun to defeat herself, but she had never realized it. Looking at Yang Chun staring at her and smiling, Shi Shanshan was also a little embarrassed and couldn't help but say angrily, if you intend to rely on this cheating method to achieve the 2 conditions, even if the sect agrees, don't expect me to admit it. You're right. In fact, even if I absorb the 6th grade fire seed, I may not be your opponent. When Yang Chun spoke, he still had a smile on his face, which made sure Shanshan always have an impulse to fight against him. But listening to what he said seemed to have other meanings. She suppressed her anger and waited to hear Yang Chen's next words. However, don't forget, the condition you mentioned is just for one person to defeat you. Yang Chun smiled again and said slowly, but you never said when I would defeat you. No matter when, the result is the same. Shi Shanshan was very proud and slightly raised her chin. The Cold Plum Fairy only had some inner demons when Yang Chun went there last time. After overcoming her inner demons, her strength had improved again, vaguely reaching the realm of the late Jedon stage and would soon break through to the peak Jedon stage. This was also the capital that she could be proud of. Is it the same when you seriously injured me? Yang Chun raised his eyebrows and looked at Shi Shanshan with a smile and asked, don't tell me that you have the confidence to win against any opponent, so you will never be injured. The reason why the Cold Plum Fairy was able to make a name for herself in her previous life was absolutely not because she bullied the weak, but because she was always able to challenge enemies that were stronger than her and win. As for being injured, it was more common, but every time she was injured, it also made Shi Shanshan more powerful. Learning from battle has always been Shi Shanshan's strength. She didn't expect that Yang Chun would propose such a method. Even if Shi Shanshan wanted to argue, she couldn't. She just never thought that Yang Chun would get along with such a method to deal with the conditions she put forward. In her eyes, a one-on-one face-to-face battle was fair, and he would never be so shameless. But what Yang Chun said was not wrong at all. It did not even violate her own requirements. One-on-one, yes, face-to-face, no. But in this case, the seriously injured Shi Shanshan was very likely not the opponent of Yang Chun. She originally thought that she could make things difficult for Yang Chun. After Yang Chen's words, suddenly the condition became the most ridiculous joke and was easily broken by Yang Chun. In this case, it seemed that Yang Chun already had a 5th grade medicinal pill in his hands, and he could also defeat Shi Shanshan. Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue seemed to become Yang Chen's wife. It was not so far away. Big Brother Yang, the sect master, said that if you want to use this medicinal pill to complete the conditions, you must wait until after the Deshang stage. Sun Qingxue interjected with some grievances. There was a trace of discomfort in her heart. In fact, the Green Jade Immortal Island also had the same conditions. If he used the 9 secluded core fire to defeat Shi Shanshan, he must wait until after the Deshang stage to marry Shi Shanshan. However, Yang Chun proposed such a solution. With the temperament of Shi Shanshan challenging masters, the chance of injury was great. Yang Chun would soon be able to meet the conditions of Shi Shanshan and marry Shi Shanshan. But Sun Qingxue could only wait until Yang Chun reached the Deshang stage before he could marry her. Even if Yang Chen's cultivation was extremely fast, it would take at least hundreds of years. In this case, the little girl Sun Qingxue certainly felt a little unbalanced and couldn't help but complain. After Shi Shanshan was speechless by Yang Chun, and then heard Sun Qingxue's words, her face sank again, and she said coldly to Yang Chun, if you use cheating to achieve the conditions, I will look down on you for a lifetime. Little Shui will also look down on you. When speaking, Sun Qingshue's tone was cold, unprecedented. These words were indeed Shi Shanshan's heartfelt words. Although Yang Chen's method did not violate her conditions, it would definitely make her despise him. Sun Qingxue originally wanted to say something, but when she heard Shi Shanshan's words and saw the cold light in Shi Shanshan's eyes, she didn't say what she wanted to say after all. She just turned to the side of Yang Chun and looked at Yang Chun and nodded pitifully. The reluctance on her face seemed to be explaining to Yang Chun that this was not her original intention, but she had to stand on the side of Shi Shanshan. Yang Chun, if you really use this method. Just after Shi Shanshan said these words, Gao Yu next to Yang Chun also said, I will be unhappy too. Junior brother, you should be a great hero. You should not use this way. Gong Sunling and Yang Chun watched Yang Chun kill the devil of the nascent soul stage and kill the master of the nascent soul stage. Although she knew that Yang Chun was teasing Shi Shanshan, she still followed Gao Yu's words. For women, two had promised to marry him. One wanted to marry, but was prevented by the conditions of the sect, and the other was somewhat dissatisfied with his philandering and must be defeated by him. All four of them had the same attitude at the moment, as if they had formed an alliance. The words of the two women made Shi Shanshan look at the two women changed a little and soften a lot. At this moment, the four women seemed to share a common enemy and stood on the opposite side of their husband. Although your husband isn't an indomitable person, he has never slacked off or cheated. At this time, Yang Chun, of course, had to show his own attitude. He must not be looked down upon by his own women. If I want to marry you, I will marry you in a dignified manner, and I will never let you feel dissatisfied in your hearts. Yang Chen's chest was straight. The two conditions you proposed, I will never use cheating methods. When these words were said, except for Sun Qingxue, who was a little worried, the other three women's eyes were glowing. They have never seen Yang Chun so heroic in order to marry them, and they were naturally happy in their hearts. Little Shui, Shanshan, you can now inform the sect that I agreed. 3 years later, I will go to the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect to heal the elders. Yang Chun said quickly, tomorrow at this time, you come here. What? Sun Qingxue asked anxiously. Accompany me in alchemy. After Yang Chun gave Sun Qingxue a smile, he turned to Shi Shanshan and said with the same smile, Shanshan, I will give you 3 years to recharge and attack the realm. After 3 years, I want to challenge you 10 times. I want you to marry me willingly. Chapter 777. The four women were a little surprised by Yang Chen's words. Yang Chun wanted to refine elixirs, but he also wanted to give Shi Shanshan 3 years to recuperate and then challenge 10 battles. What was he going to do? If it was to defeat Shi Shanshan, 1 battle was enough. Why 10 battles? And in 3 years, what kind of elixir was he going to refine? No one knew what Yang Chun planned, but Yang Chun promised to heal several elders, which was a real favor. This must be reported back to the sect. The two women did not dare to neglect. They did not come alone. They immediately arranged for their own people to report back. After a day's rest, the two women followed Yang Chun to Yang Chen's den room. Gao Yu and Gong Sunling had accompanied Yang Chun for several times. It was not surprising that Yang Chun could refine elixirs, but it was the first time for Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan to see Yang Chun refine elixirs. The two seemed to feel very fresh. Gong Sunling needed to travel around to refine the geographical map of mountains and rivers. Yang Chun had to retreat, but she had to go out. At least she had to visit all the territories of the Dao sects and draw all the geographical maps of the Dao sections. Anyway, Gong Sunling had the praying mantis puppet and the protection of the ship, plus the elixir given by Yang Chun. It was enough to deal with most of the dangers of the Dao sections. Before Yang Chun was going to refine elixirs, Gong Sunling said goodbye to Yang Chun, Sun Qingxue, and Shi Shanshan, and several core Jidon disciples of Chunyang Palace set out on the road to gain experience. When Gong Sunling came back this time, she also wanted to accept a few potential apprentices. She was already in the middle Jidon stage, which was enough to meet the conditions for accepting apprentices. Galyu wanted to refine the dragon horn flying sword. Although she had been in the sect, she had to temper it with her master at all times and also perfect the design of the dragon horn flying sword. Therefore, the matter of accompanying Yang Chun to refine elixirs was handed over to Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan. The two women saw Yang Chun refine elixirs for the first time and felt curious. However, Yang Chun did not start to refine elixirs at first, but gave the two women a first-grade inner sensing pill and a second-grade inner sensing pill, and let them take turns to take. Everyone knew that the second-grade inner sensing pill was Yang Chen's unique medicinal pill. Knowing that he still had a lot in his hands, the two women were not polite. After Yang Chen said that he wanted to marry her, Shi Shanshan's face was also a lot better to Yang Chen. Although she still had that frosty face, there was no longer that kind of targeting. After the two inner sensing pills were taken, the two women quickly noticed that there was something wrong with the spiritual power in their bodies. Whether it was Sun Qingxue or Shi Shanshan, they were geniuses with excellent talent in cultivation. After discovering the problem, they naturally made targeted adjustments. Just 2 medicinal pills were enough for the two women to save at least 20 years of hard work in the future. After all, it was by no means an easy task to adjust their previous cultivation deviations, and it was even difficult to find this. With the inner sensing pill, the earlier the two women found out, the easier it would be to correct the deviations, and the higher their future achievements would be. Shi Shanshan seemed to understand what Yang Chen meant by letting her recharge. These 3 years were just enough for Shi Shanshan to adjust the spiritual power of her whole body to the best. She was now very much looking forward to what kind of combat power Yang Chen would show at that time. Next, Yang Chen still did not immediately start alchemy, but asked the two women in detail about the injuries of the injured elders in their sect. Because this time it was the two women who came to ask Yang Chen for help. So before they set off, they also went to see the injured elders. Everyone's injuries and their own feelings were told to the two women. When Yang Chen asked, they naturally related in detail. The injuries of the elders, it's better for you to see it with your own eyes before making a judgment, right? Shi Shanshan said this, but she still had some doubts. If you don't see it with your own eyes, or even make a diagnosis, it would be difficult to make a correct judgment. I just need to know if a certain kind of medicinal pill can treat it. Yang Chen replied with a smile, and then after thinking about it, he took out the profound spirit furnace. Even if Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue were not good at alchemy, but when they saw Yang Chen's profound spirit furnace, they still couldn't help but cheer. The high grade of Yang Chen's profound spirit furnace made the two women somewhat unable to believe it. In any case, they couldn't believe that Yang Chen, a cultivator in the early Jidon stage, could refine an alchemy furnace to such a high level. In this regard, Yang Chen certainly would not explain it, but one by one he took out the medicinal materials he needed from the medicine garden. Lingji mushrooms that were more than 1,000 years old were directly taken out more than 20 pieces, and other fresh auxiliary medicinal materials that were more than 1,000 years old were also fresh in front of the two women. They have already seen the medicinal materials that were used to refine the questioning inner heart pill. Although these things that were less than 2,000 years old were precious, they still did not put them in the eyes of the two women. Watching Yang Chen prepare a lot of medicinal materials and then casually throw them into the profound spirit furnace like a pile of rags. Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan both widened their eyes and stared carefully. Yang Chen, as a senior alchemist master, was not an illusion, but a real thing, so the two women really wanted to see if Yang Chen's alchemy technique was as magical as people outside speculated. The medicinal pill that Yang Chen wanted to refine was the Lingji mushroom jade pill. This kind of medicinal pill was the best holy medicine for healing injuries. The injuries below the yuanying stage, as long as there was still a breath, it could pull people back from the edge of the netherworld. The last time Gao Yu was in danger in the 100,000 mountains, she saved her life by relying on the Lingji mushroom jade pill. The higher the realm of the cultivator, the more difficult it was to recover. Generally speaking, the master of the Dashang stage had a high cultivation base and would not be easily injured, but once injured, it would definitely be a big trouble. This Lingji mushroom jade pill was only effective for the injuries below the Yuanying stage. If the cultivation base was higher, it would not be so effective. For the masters of the Dashang stage, it was naturally useless. However, whether it was useful or not was relative. The first-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was of no use, but this does not mean that the fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was useless. That's right, Yang Chun was going to refine the fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill in front of the two women to heal the injured three Dashang stage elders of the two major sect. Asking about the condition of the injuries of the three elders was to judge whether the fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill could cure their injuries or not. Fortunately, in Yang Chen's view, the fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was enough. No one would know that Yang Chen was already a sixth-grade alchemist master before he was reborn. The sixth-grade alchemist master of the heavenly court, apart from the fact that the cultivation base was still far worse than that of the great principal golden immortal, the experience and techniques of alchemy were completely no problem. Coupled with the basic knowledge learned from the jade slip recently, not to mention the fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, even if it was the sixth grade, it was not a problem for Yang Chun. Chapter 778. In the eyes of Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue, Yang Chen's alchemy was absolutely dazzling. A large pile of medicinal materials was thrown into the pill furnace, and under the control of Yang Chun, they were separated into an area, and then different flames emerged to refine a certain medicinal material separately. If this process happened in sequence, it would not be surprising. After each medicinal material was refined, it would be added to the pill furnace at the right time. This was the common sense understanding of all cultivators of the alchemy process. However, Yang Chen's approach subverted the common sense of the two women. All medicinal materials were refined at the same time, and the most outrageous thing was that the flame used for refining each kind of medicinal material was actually different. Yang Chun had many kinds of fire seeds in his hands, which the two women knew. In order to refine the questioning inner heart pill, the two major sect alone gave Yang Chun no less than 100 kinds of fire seeds. Different medicinal materials were refined with different fire seeds. This was also common sense, and there was no doubt about it. Some medicinal materials were suitable for fierce fire, some were suitable for slow fire, and some needed in fire, and so on. However, controlling several different flames at the same time and refining dozens of medicinal materials at the same time, this has exceeded the imagination of the two women. How many times did it take to accurately grasp the refining of all the medicinal materials? Not only did he control different flames, but different flames also had different degrees of heat, and different degrees of heat also corresponded to different medicinal materials, and even a medicinal material also needed different flames and different degrees of heat. This alone was enough to make the two women marvel at Yang Chen's alchemy technique. The two women were both masters of cultivation and naturally understood what such exquisite control meant. Even Shi Shanshan seemed to have a new evaluation of Yang Chen's combat effectiveness. The refining of medicinal materials was no longer difficult for Yang Chun, and it even happened to verify the things recorded on the jade slips in the medicine nourishing gourd. Of course, Yang Chun used the correct condensing method this time, rather than deliberately making mistakes to know what the consequences of mistakes would be. The next refining, the two women could not understand it. However, the principle was very clear. It was nothing more than adding the right herbs to the furnace at the right time. It was just that Yang Chen's method was slightly different. In fact, there was not much difference. The uniqueness of the profound spirit furnace and the subtlety of Yang Chen's fire control. Yes, Yang Chun could use the flame to surround the medicinal materials and temporarily store them in a corner without damaging the medicinal materials. When it was time to add the medicinal materials, he would control the addition of the refined medicinal liquid. Under the watchful eyes of the two women, Yang Chun soon completed the refinement of the Lingji mushroom jade pill. Because of the improvement of the quality of the profound spirit furnace, the refining of each kind of medicinal pill can automatically increase a grade. If Yang Chun took out the pill at this time, Yang Chun could easily get the second grade Lingji Mushroom Jade pill. However, this was not the purpose of Yang Chun. Yang Chun quietly began the second grade refining. The two women only knew that Yang Chun was refining a kind of medicinal pill that could alleviate and stabilize the injuries of the injured elders. No one would think that Yang Chun was directly attacking the fifth grade refining. It's not that the two women didn't think of it, but this has exceeded the imagination of the two women. There's never been a fifth grade alchemist master in the mortal world. Yang Chun was a small Jidan stage junior. Even if he was strong, it was already the limit to attack the fourth grade. How could he carry out the fifth grade refining? Even those famous senior alchemist masters in history, when they attacked the fourth grade alchemist master, they only chose the simplest qi nourishing pill for the fourth grade refining. Even the predecessor of the Blue Cloud Sect's consciousness clone, didn't he only refine the fifth grade qi nourishing pill? Who could think that Yang Chun used so many millennium elixirs at first glance? It was a high-level healing medicine, and he still wanted to attack the fifth grade refining. The two women only regarded Yang Chun's alchemy as an ordinary alchemy. Anyway, they never accompanied Yang Chun to refine medicinal pills. In addition, they had just taken the inner sensing pill. They could just watch Yang Chun's alchemy and think of ways to solve some deviations in their cultivation. The second grade inner sensing pill really shocked the two women. After personally experiencing the effect, they finally understood why Qiao Ming and Su Qingxin could rely on a medicinal pill to cross their tribulation and form their nascent soul. At that critical moment, the help provided by this medicinal pill could definitely make people's cultivation have a qualitative change. In a blink of an eye, a year had passed. Yang Chun has completed the second grade refining and turned to attack the third grade refining. Outside the pill furnace, they couldn't see the situation inside the pill furnace at all. The two women still thought that Yang Chun had not finished refining, and no one urged him, just quietly accompanied him. The calm alchemy seemed to have no waves. Only Yang Chun's look became more and more focused, and his expression became more and more cautious. In the third grade refining, Yang Chun could still control it relatively normally, but when it came to the fourth grade refining, there was some trouble. In the end, Yang Chun's cultivation base was too low. In his previous life, Yang Chun was a sixth grade alchemist master, and he could easily refine the medicinal pills of these mortals. However, that was based on his own cultivation base of the great principle Golden Immortal. Now Yang Chun was only in the early Jidan stage. Even if because of the cultivation of the Yin and Yang five-element secret art, Yang Chun's spiritual power cultivation base was close to the masters of the Yuanying stage, but compared to the great principle Golden Immortal, it was almost the difference between heaven and earth, and even a finger of the great principle Golden Immortal could not be compared. In this case, it was still difficult to perfectly control the fourth grade refining. Fortunately, Yang Chun's spiritual awareness had reached the level of the middle Deshang stage, and he was barely able to control the situation. The caution and concentration shown by Yang Chun made the two women understand that the refining of this medicinal pill was at a critical moment. The two women no longer cared about their own affairs, but carefully guarded Yang Chun, trying not to let Yang Chun be disturbed in any way. Although this was the site of Chunyang Palace, and theoretically no one would rush in, the two women were still extremely careful. At the same time, they also had a layer of worry for Yang Chun, not for fear that Yang Chun would be in any danger, but for fear that his refining would fail. When he was concentrating on something, it was also the most attractive time. Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan had enough good feelings for Yang Chun. At this moment, they were even more attracted by Yang Chun's concentration. Sun Qingxue had long been in love with Yang Chun. If it wasn't for the request of the sect, she might have agreed to become Yang Chun's wife. And Shi Shanshan, when watching Yang Chun so dedicated to refining the medicinal pill, seemed to have a better understanding of Yang Chun's efforts. Success was never accidental. Yang Chun could become such an outstanding alchemist master, and there must be something extraordinary about him. Looking at Yang Chen's face that was already faintly sweating, Shi Shanshan's heart suddenly softened a lot. Chapter 779. Time passed quickly, especially when Yang Chen was focused on alchemy. He would not notice the passage of time at all. Now the fourth grade refining of the medicinal pill has been completed, but Yang Chen is still continuing. Although the profound spirit furnace could automatically improve the efficiency of the first grade refining, Yang Chen still wanted to be a little more safe, at least half of the fifth grade refining, so that the success rate of the pill would be higher. In 2 years and 8 months, Yang Chen has felt that the medicinal pill in the pill furnace has faintly shown signs of the fifth grade, so he stopped. Coupled with the effect of the profound spirit furnace, this batch of Lingji mushroom jade pill was already at the level of the fifth grade. If he wanted to strengthen it, Yang Chen was afraid that once the sixth grade medicinal pill came out, it might cause a storm in the entire Dao sections. The fifth grade medicinal pill was enough to shock the world. Yang Chen was not a person who was willing to be in the limelight. As long as enough alchemy advantages were maintained, it was enough. There was no need to make people surprised to feel that he would pose a threat. In addition, even if Yang Chen wanted to complete a higher grade refining, he was also powerless. With his current cultivation base, it was impossible. Now, it was promoted to the fifth grade by the profound spirit furnace. In fact, the essence was still the fourth grade refining, but the medicinal pill itself was the Lingji mushroom jade pill, which was much more advanced than the qi replenishing pill. The fourth grade was the current true level of Yang Chen. If he wanted to carry out a higher grade refining, Yang Chen probably estimated that at least he had to reach the late Yuanying stage, or even higher. The gap between the fourth grade and the fifth grade was by no means a big gap, just like the earth-shattering difference in the effect of medicine. To reach the fifth grade medicinal pill, it could almost be called a real spirit pill, the medicinal pill that would only appear in the spiritual world. The injuries of the 3 Deshang stage elders, the fifth grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, had only one effect: the medicine would cure the disease. In the eyes of Shi Shanshan and Sun Qingxue, after Yang Chen performed a series of dazzling pill-taking techniques, 5 golden pills were formed in an instant. Then, they flashed with a blinding light and flew into Yang Chen's hand. Yang Chen first checked it carefully and even placed the elixir into his sea of consciousness to observe it. Then, he nodded in satisfaction and handed one to Sun Qingxue. "Big brother Yang, the pill has been refined?" Sun Qingxue asked, anxiously, without even looking at the results. After seeing Yang Chen nod, he lowered his head and carefully examined the elixir in his hand. "Ah!" A long scream came out from Sun Qingxue's mouth, startling Shi Shanshan, who was waiting to ask what kind of pill it was. Hastily she asked, "What happened? What's wrong?" Sun Qingxue handed the elixir in her hand to Shi Shanshan in a sluggish manner. Her mouth was still slightly open. She couldn't believe what she saw. How could there be 5 pill patterns on the golden elixir? Shi Shanshan thought that something had happened to Sun Qingxue. After taking the elixir, she just carefully looked around and suddenly fell into horror. This was actually a 5th grade elixir. How was this possible? Shi Shanshan almost screamed like Sun Qingxue, but she still forced herself to hold back. For fear that she was wrong, she took the elixir and looked at it several times. Only then did she determine that this was not a few elixir patterns that Yang Chen had casually drawn on it. It was not a fake elixir pattern, but a real 5 elixir pattern. "I said, I will marry you fair and square." Yang Chen's extremely confident words came out of his mouth. Facing Sun Qingxue, Yang Chen stretched out his right hand. "5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, Lil Shui. Marry me." Sun Qingxue was immersed in a great surprise. Yang Chen's words woke her up from the surprise, and then she heard her dream of Yang Chen's marriage proposal. She fell into ecstasy again, no longer caring about anything else. She put her little hand in Yang Chen's hand. Yang Chen just gently pulled, and Sun Qingxue's delicate body fell into Yang Chen's arms. She hugged Yang Chen tightly. and tears of joy flowed down involuntarily. Stretching out his big hand, Yang Chen gently held Sun Qingshue's beautiful face. His big fingers gently stroked Sun Qingshue's cheek and gently wiped away her hot tears. Then, in Sun Qingshue's happy and shy eyes, he kissed Sun Qingshue's red lips. With a moan, Sun Qingxue instantly fell into great happiness. She felt as if she was already in heaven. The wonderful taste made her almost unable to control herself. Without the slightest struggle, Sun Qingxue obediently closed her eyes and enjoyed the hot kiss from her beloved. Shi Shanshan witnessed everything from the side, but she did not have the slightest intention to stop it. According to the conditions set by the Blue Cloud sect, Sun Qingxue was already Yang Chen's wife, and only a ceremony was missing. What reason did she have to stop the intimacy between Yang Chen and Sun Qingxue? However, this kind of scene that made even Shi Shanshan feel a little shy did not make Shi Shanshan retreat. She was still immersed in the fact that Yang Chen refined a fifth revolution pill in front of them, unable to extricate herself. How is this possible? How is this possible? How did he manage to concoct a fifth revolution pill? However, everything happened in front of her eyes, and everything was the truth. Now, Shi Shanshan finally understood why Yang Chen asked her and Sun Qingxue to accompany him in refining pills. It was so that they could witness this moment with their own eyes. If Shi Shanshan did not see it with her own eyes, even if Yang Chen took out the fifth revolution pill, Shi Shanshan might have suspected that Yang Chen cheated and used the pill given by the Blue Cloud sect. Now that everything happened in front of her eyes, no matter how much Shi Shanshan wanted to say that it was impossible, she could not say it out loud. Looking at the blissful expression on Sun Qingxue's face as she was hugged and kissed in Yang Chen's arms, Shi Shanshan suddenly felt a little envious. If she was the one being hugged and kissed in Yang Chen's arms at this moment, what kind of feeling would it be? At the thought of this, Shi Shanshan suddenly woke up and hurriedly expelled this kind of thought from her mind. How could I think of this? Yang Chen has not fulfilled the conditions that I proposed and defeated me in a fair and square manner. Even if he had solved the conditions of Sun Qingxue, if he wanted me, Shi Shanshan would definitely not go easy on me. As this thought flashed across her mind, Shi Shanshan suddenly had another question. Yang Chen asked me to recuperate for 3 years and then challenge me for 10 rounds. What does that mean? Could it be that Yang Chen wants to find an opportunity to defeat me in 10 rounds? Yes, that must be it. As long as he can defeat me once, I will have fulfilled my conditions and marry Yang Chen. Looking at Sun Qingxue's extremely surprised and happy expression, Shi Shanshan suddenly hesitated. Should I go easy on Yang Chen? If I only go easy on him a little, perhaps others would not be able to tell. Chapter 780. The movement here naturally alarmed Gao Yu, who had been paying attention to this place. Soon, when Gao Yu saw the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, she inevitably fell into a sluggish state. Even if she knew that Yang Chen was likely to reach the realm of the 5th grade alchemist master, Gao Yu did not expect that Yang Chen had reached this level now. For a while, Gao Yu was already a little silly, and suddenly she didn't know how to describe herself as a disciple and a husband. Genius? Or an evildoer? Yang Chen did not let Shi Shanshan wait for a long time. After refining the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, he just meditated to recover for a day and a night, and then took Shi Shanshan to an unknown place. Whether it was Gao Yu or Sun Qingxue, they all knew that Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan went out. It must be Yang Chen challenging Shi Shanshan. However, neither of the two women followed. Sun Qingxue firmly remembered that when she and Yang Chen broke into the secret plane, they were still in the foundation stage. Yang Chen killed 5 peak Yuanying stage praying mantis monster beasts in an instant. Although Sister Shanshan was powerful compared with 5 praying mantises, there should still be some gap. As for Gao Yu, she never doubted Yang Chen's combat effectiveness. The corpse of the 2nd city master has been refined into a puppet and placed in her Chinquan bag. Gao Yu never doubted the result of the challenge between Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan. It was estimated that the head of the palace did not feel anything about Sher Shanshan's request. They were just worried about the requirements of the Blue Cloud sect's 5th-grade medicinal pill. But now Yang Chun only took a short period of 3 years, and it was all solved during the time of alchemy. It seemed that Gao Yu must also inform the sect to prepare for Yang Chen's marriage. Both of them seemed to understand Sher Shanshan's pride. They didn't follow her because they were afraid that Sher Shanshan would lose face if she lost. However, in Sher Shanshan's eyes, this action had the opposite meaning. Gao Yu and Sun Qingxue were already Yang Chen's wives in name. They probably didn't want to see their husband lose face. In the place where the two fought, Yang Chun chose a small valley in the Meiqing Mountain that was not very noticeable. Throwing a set of array flags made by Gong Sunling into the surroundings, it formed a powerful maze array. Outsiders would not be able to find out what was happening in the array. Are you ready? Yang Chen stood in front of Sher Shanshan empty-handed. He looked at Sher Shanshan, who was also empty-handed, and asked in a deep voice. Sher Shanshan nodded and didn't say anything, but it seemed that she had already gathered all the spiritual power in her body. The first time, Yang Chun stretched out a finger. Buzz, Sher Shanshan was waiting for Yang Chen's attack. Suddenly, a dull bell sound seemed to ring directly from his soul. Almost without any reaction, Sher Shanshan's spiritual awareness was shaken. Her eyes were dark, and she fainted. She didn't know how long it took for Sher Shanshan to wake up from her coma. As soon as she regained consciousness, Sher Shanshan bounced up from the ground and noticed that there was nothing wrong with her body, so she began to observe the surroundings. Yang Chun was sitting not far away, and Sher Shanshan only now discovered that she had just gotten up from a wooden bed. It seemed that she had been lying on a wooden bed. Thinking of her own coma, Sher Shanshan had a rich combat experience. How could she not know that Yang Chun had launched a spiritual awareness attack? It's just that, relying on a magic weapon to make herself unconscious in an instant, Sher Shanshan really didn't want to admit this failure. Take a break, let's continue. Yang Chun seemed to have already seen through Sher Shanshan's thoughts. He just gave a gentle smile and handed a calming pill to Sher Shanshan. This calming pill could quickly calm people down. For the current Sher Shanshan, it was perfect. Again, Sher Shanshan did not refuse Yang Chen's kindness. She directly swallowed the pill and sat down to meditate. Soon, Sher Shanshan rushed towards Yang Chun and issued another challenge. The second time, Yang Chun stretched out 2 fingers. This time, Sher Shanshan did not give Yang Chun any chance. Yang Chen's voice had just fallen when Sher Shanshan's flying sword had already chopped down on Yang Chen's body. Of course, it was Yang Chen's thigh that was chopped off. This kind of challenge, Sher Shanshan, would certainly not be directed at Yang Chun. Ding! A crisp sound of metal impact sounded. Yang Chen's body stood in the same place without moving. The flying sword chopped on his body and was directly bounced off. Yang Chen's body did not have the slightest injury. Ding, ding, ding. Sher Shanshan did not believe it. She kept chopping down with her sword. This time, not only his thigh, but his waist, abdomen, and chest were also attacked. Unfortunately, no matter how Sher Shanshan urged the flying sword, Yang Chen's body was like a piece of steel without the slightest damage. Don't you still have a praying mantis puppet? Let's attack together. Yang Chun stood in the same place and was hit by Sher Shanshan's sword. He even reminded Sher Shanshan to use the Yuanying stage puppet to fight. Sher Shanshan's heart was also provoked by Yang Chen's words, and she released the praying mantis puppet without hesitation. As soon as the praying mantis was released, its huge forearm was like a sharp knife, and it chopped down on Yang Chen's body. Unfortunately, even if it was the praying mantis puppet at the peak Yuanying stage, when it chopped down on Yang Chen's body, it was still useless. Except for a few low sounds, there was no reaction at all. How could this be? Sher Shanshan was really shocked for a while. She didn't even react when Yang Chun came forward. It wasn't until Yang Chun put a flying sword on her neck that Sher Shanshan realized that she seemed to have lost again this time. According to the Green Jade Immortal Island, you should already be my wife. Yang Chun put away the flying sword and stood in front of Shi Shanshan. He gently lifted Shi Shanshan's chin with his hand. In Shi Shanshan's puzzled eyes, he gently kissed her lips. Shi Shanshan's eyes suddenly widened, and her hands directly pushed Yang Chun out. She subconsciously reached out to wipe her lips, and her heart was full of anger. You just rely on a defensive magic weapon. It's not a fair win. Even if she was defeated twice in a row in the hands of Yang Chun, Shi Shanshan was still somewhat unconvinced. In particular, Yang Chun simply relied on a defensive magic weapon this time, and took advantage of the opportunity of her shock to succeed, which made her even more unconvinced. Okay, I don't need a defensive magic weapon. Yang Chun quickly answered, directly stretched out 3 fingers, and said to Shi Shanshan, the third time. When Yang Chun shouted for the third time, Shi Shanshan's figure had already rushed up. She firmly believed that once Yang Chun had no defensive magic weapon, he would definitely not be her opponent. Pong! A red smoke suddenly burst in front of Shi Shanshan's eyes, and then Shi Shanshan noticed a sense of danger. A few vines suddenly entangled her hands and feet like snakes. Chapter 781. It happened so suddenly that Shi Shanshan didn't even think about it. She used the flying sword to cut the vines. However, as soon as she thought about it, she suddenly noticed that she began to feel dizzy, and the vines seemed to have some small thorns that pierced in her body in an instant. Just this time, Shi Shanshan had no strength in her whole body for a while, and the flying sword in the air also fell to the ground with a clang. Her body began to fall softly, and then fell into the arms of Yang Chun. So what about this time? Yang Chun skillfully picked up Shi Shanshan's body horizontally, and then kissed Shi Shanshan's lips again. Shi Shanshan didn't even have the strength to struggle, and could only let Yang Chun do what he wanted. At the moment when the lips touched, the red smoke and the vines disappeared without a trace, and a green vine appeared quickly, circling around Shi Shanshan's body, and the feeling of soreness quickly dissipated. When the body recovered its strength, Shi Shanshan pushed Yang Chun away again. She stared at Yang Chun with some dissatisfaction and asked, "What is that?" "Blood phantom vine." Yang Chun did not hide it from Shi Shanshan and replied quickly. Hearing that it was a murderous creature like the blood phantom vine, Shi Shanshan couldn't help but be shocked. However, after checking her body, she found that she was unharmed except for a few small holes in her hands and feet, so she was relieved. However, being controlled by this kind of murderous creature, Shi Shanshan was still somewhat inexplicably uncomfortable. She stared at Yang Chun. Although she didn't say much, the expression on her face and eyes clearly showed her dissatisfaction. Well, the fourth time. This time, Yang Chun extended 4 fingers. Shi Shanshan's figure suddenly moved, and a sword light quickly slashed towards Yang Chun. Not far away, the mantis puppet also waved its arms and rushed forward. Yang Chun opened his hand, and a long shadow instantly flew out. The long shadow was as agile as a living creature in the air. With a few twists and turns, the mantis puppet not far away was firmly entangled. When a mantis puppet stopped moving, Shi Shanshan could see clearly that there was a 5-colored rope wrapped around the puppet. With the power of the peak yuanying stage of the praying mantis puppet, it couldn't compete with the rope wrapped around its body. Even if Shi Shanshan controlled the praying mantis puppet to use its greatest strength, there was nothing she could do about the rope. However, the experienced Shi Shanshan knew that this was not the time to be in a daze. It was because of her own absent-mindedness that Yang Chun took advantage of it. So even if the puppet had been restrained, Shi Shanshan's flying sword still rushed to Yang Chun. Ding! Shi Shanshan's flying sword was blocked by a flying sword that appeared out of thin air. Shi Shanshan didn't even think about turning the sword in another direction, but the result was the same. Another flying sword appeared and blocked Shi Shanshan's flying sword again. Next, a lot of flying swords appeared around Yang Chun, and quickly formed a sharp sword array, covering Shi Shanshan in it. As a sword cultivator, Shi Shanshan certainly understood the power of the sword array. However, there were flaws in any array, and this sword array would be no exception. Sure Shan tried many times, but to no avail. 49 flying swords flew up and down around Sure Shan's body, as if the flying swords wouldn't react as long as Sure Shan didn't attack. Sure Shan stared at the flying swords for a long time before she made up her mind. Relying on the sharpness of her protective magic weapon, she moved toward Yangchun. This movement seemed to have ignited the sword array. 49 flying swords instantly turned into fierce, sharp weapons, slashing violently at Sure Shan's body. Clang, clang, clang. With just 3 sounds, the protective armor that Sure Shan relied on to defend herself was pierced by the flying sword. Next, at least 4 flying swords pierced through the broken protective armor. However, the moment the blades touched Sure Shan's skin, they all stopped. No matter how proud Sure Shan was, she understood that Yangchun had shown mercy. He could only suddenly put away the flying sword and stood in place, motionless. Yangchun did not withdraw the sword array, but walked over slowly and kissed Sure Shan's lips, who was standing close to the 49 flying swords, and then waved his hand to remove the sword array and the rope that tied the praying mantis puppet. The rope was clearly the 5-element rope hook that Yangchun obtained from the Dragon Palace treasure house. It was made of the 5-element dragon tendons. Not to mention that the praying mantis was only a puppet at the peak yuanying stage. If it was really entangled, even if it was a Deshang stage cultivator, it would not necessarily be able to break free. As for the sword array, it was a 7-step enchantment array that Yangchun stripped from the Dome Hall. This array had killed several yuanying stage masters. It was really simple to deal with Sure Shan. Do you have to rely on these foreign objects to defeat me? The 4th time she was defeated by Yangchun, and her lips were also kissed by Yangchun 3 times, but Sure Shan was still a little unconvinced. Well, I won't rely on these foreign objects. Yangchun directly spread out his right hand and raised it the 5th time. This time, it was not Sure Shan who took the initiative to attack, but Yangchun. As soon as the voice fell, Yangchun's 2 hands each produced a thin flame and flew towards Sure Shan. The flame was purple and cyan. Although the color was strange, the flame was too thin and looked inconspicuous. It was a bit too much to call it a flame, but it was very appropriate to describe it as a fire filament. If Sure Shan didn't know that Yangchun was definitely a master of fire control, she might ignore these 2 fire filaments. Looking at this scene, Sure Shan didn't dare to have any carelessness, and she stared at the 2 fire filaments as if she was facing a formidable enemy. Under the control of Yangchun, the 2 fire filaments were slender and flexible, and they almost instantly entangled Sure Shan. Even if Sure Shan had controlled the flying sword several times, she couldn't cut off the 2 fire filaments. She used a few water attribute magic weapons to suppress it, but when those magic weapons touched the fire filaments, they melted like candles and didn't work at all. The 2 fire filaments were like ropes that trapped Sure Shan. Sure Shan had just cast another body armor. As soon as it touched the fire filaments, it was burned into a few black shadows, until the fire filaments surrounded Sure Shan, making her unable to move at all. Yangchun stepped forward again and asked with a smile, "How is it this time?" Sure Shan snorted coldly, but didn't say anything. Although she had already admitted that this move of Yangchun's was absolutely unique and powerful, Sure Shan didn't know why, but she still didn't want to give in. Yangchun didn't mind. He just kissed Sure Shan's lips again, and then shook his hand to withdraw all the flames. He took a few steps back, stretched out 2 fingers, and made a gesture of 6. He said the 6th time. Chapter 782. Unknowingly, a uniquely shaped flying sword appeared in Yangchun's hand. It was blood-red in color, and people could tell that it was made of some kind of plant at a glance. The strange thing was that the hilt was very peculiar. A ferocious ghost head spat out the blade from its mouth, and the hilt itself seemed to be a living thing. It twisted and spiraled around Yangchun's hand and wrist. It was very strange. Sure Shan was secretly surprised, but she didn't show any expression on her face. When Yang Chun picked up the flying sword, she shouted and slashed at him with her sword. This time, Yang Chun still stood in the same place. He just raised the long sword his hand high, looked at the incoming flying sword, and slashed it down. Even with the flying sword in his hand, Yang Chen's speed was still abnormally fast. No matter how fast Shi Shanshan's flying sword was or which direction it flew from, it couldn't escape from Yang Chen's slash. With a slight sound of sharp blade cutting through tofu, Shi Shanshan's flying sword was easily cut into two by Yang Chen's slash. With the remaining momentum of cutting the flying sword, Yang Chen's figure dashed to a place not far from Shi Shanshan. Just when Shi Shanshan summoned another flying sword, it was cut off by Yang Chen's tyrannical slash. Then, Yang Chen's sword was placed on Shi Shanshan's white neck. Don't tell me this is your natal flying sword. Yang Chun didn't feel sorry for cutting off Shi Shanshan's flying sword. When needed, Yang Chun could give Shi Shanshan hundreds of flying swords. You are relying on the sharpness of the flying sword. I won't accept this. Shi Shanshan's tone did not soften at all. She looked at Yang Chun with the same unconvinced gaze. Yang Chun leaned forward, and his lips pecked Shi Shanshan's red lips again. He took back the blood demon vine sword held by Xiao Tian, and then found an ordinary flying sword and threw it in the air. The seventh time, Yang Chun made a 7 sign with one hand, and the flying sword in the air drew a few circles in front of him, signaling Shi Shanshan to come again. Shi Shanshan took out another flying sword from her cosmos bag and controlled it to attack Yang Chun. Shi Shanshan did not resist Yang Chen's subsequent 2 light kisses. It seemed that because she was controlled by Yang Chun, she was unable to resist, but Shi Shanshan herself understood that in her heart, she seemed to have accepted such a thing. When Yang Chun kissed her for the first time, Shi Shanshan pushed Yang Chun away and then wiped her lips with her hand. But now, Shi Shanshan has no such action. Even when she was controlled by Yang Chun and her lips came up, she still had some expectations in her heart. After being defeated by Yang Chun 6 times in a row, Shi Shanshan actually had some admiration for Yang Chun in her heart. Although Shi Shanshan was still stubborn, Yang Chun seemed to have defeated her when she was in her best condition. Whether he used a foreign object or not, it seemed that he did not violate the conditions she proposed. However, for Shi Shanshan's stubbornness, Yang Chun did not mind. Yang Chun had already expected this situation. The reason why he proposed 10 challenges was because of this. He wanted to defeat Shi Shanshan in all aspects and let Shi Shanshan, this girl, be convinced by him. The appearance of Xiao Tian was not because Yang Chun wanted to use the advantage of the flying sword to win, but to use his pet to defeat Shi Shanshan. But Shi Shanshan seemed to have some misunderstandings. Yang Chun simply took back Xiao Tian and only used the Imperial Sword technique. Even if there was no Xiao Tian, Yang Chen's Imperial Sword technique under the control of his middle Deshang stage spiritual awareness, the power was not trivial. Although he did not have the idea of killing Shi Shanshan, he also wanted to make Shi Shanshan unable to bear the consequences. The flying sword controlled by the two began to meet in the air. However, every time the flying sword collided, it would cause a surge in Shi Shanshan's mind. There was a great power on Yang Chen's flying sword. As soon as it collided with Shi Shanshan's flying sword, it could always bring a little damage to Shi Shanshan's flying sword. This was not the damage to the flying sword itself, but to reduce the connection between Shi Shanshan and the flying sword. The flying sword controlled by Yang Chun was extremely fast and very flexible. While hitting Shi Shanshan's flying sword, it was always able to maintain enough offensive so that Shi Shanshan had no time to split. She could only try to control her own flying sword to resist. However, this gave Yang Chen's flying sword more opportunities to hit Shi Shanshan. The more times they hit, Shi Shanshan found that she could no longer control her flying sword as if it was her own arm. Even her defense could not be maintained. However, Yang Chen did not give in. After a series of deliberate attacks, Shi Shanshan could no longer control her flying sword. It was directly cut off from Shi Shanshan's mind and fell to the ground with a clang. After experiencing Yang Chen's attacks, Shi Shanshan even felt that her sea of consciousness was a little swollen. While she was shocked, Yang Chen's flying sword had fallen on Shi Shanshan's neck again. How about this time? No one knew when, but Yang Chen was already standing opposite Shi Shanshan. Looking at Shi Shanshan's restrained appearance, he asked with a smile on his face. Shi Shanshan just snorted but did not turn her face away. Yang Chen smiled and moved forward. Shi Shanshan seemed to have a guilty conscience and closed her eyes. Her lips trembled as if she had already accepted her fate. Yang Chen's lips once again kissed Shi Shanshan's red lips. This time, Yang Chen was no longer skimming the water, but stayed for a long time. When the red lips in contact were trembling violently, he separated. Still not convinced? You can rest for a while, recover, and continue. Yang Chen once again handed Shi Shanshan a calming spirit pill and a few Peiyuan pills to let Shi Shanshan rest. In the battle just now, Shi Shanshan's spiritual awareness had a certain shock, and her spiritual power was also consumed. She could only recover after a rest. Shi Shanshan did not refuse. She had now begun to look forward to the next 3 games. What means did Yang Chen intend to use to defeat her? As for the previous thoughts of throwing the game, she had already left it behind. Yang Chen was not idle when Shi Shanshan was resting, but he quickly made a pot of hot tea and poured it to Shi Shanshan. This was Shi Shanshan's favorite way to relax. A few cups of hot tea could not only restore her spiritual power, but also relax her mood. It was the most suitable thing at this time. Shi Shanshan did not refuse Yang Chen's kindness. When Yang Chen brewed the tea, Shi Shanshan had been staring at Yang Chen's every move with a very complicated look. It seemed that she wanted to see what kind of person Yang Chen was. For Yang Chen's talent in alchemy, Shi Shanshan was already full of admiration. Yang Chen became the first 5th-grade alchemist in the mortal world at such a young age. He was definitely the object of countless people's pursuit. But Shi Shanshan never thought that in the battle, Yang Chen was so powerful. Chapter 783. The 8th time, when Yang Chen made the 8 gesture, Shi Shanshan's long-awaited spirit power arrow had already been sent out. However, the spirit power arrow just left Shi Shanshan's finger. An overwhelming majestic momentum had already filled the valley where the two were fighting. At this moment, Yang Chen released the strongest pressure and directly mobilized the spiritual awareness of the middle Deshang stage, oppressing Shi Shanshan. Affected by Yang Chen's pressure, the spirit power arrow that flew out suddenly lost the control of its owner and dissipated in the air. Shi Shanshan, on the other hand, had to face the pressure of Yang Chen and struggled to resist. The gap between the two sides' spiritual awareness was too big. Even if Shi Shanshan had unique conditions, with the support of the sect, with excellent cultivation methods, even if Shi Shanshan's spiritual awareness strength has reached the level of the early Yuanying stage, but in the face of Yang Chen's Deshang stage pressure, it was still not enough. The attack of the spiritual awareness was pervasive, and Shi Shanshan had no other way but to resist it. Just for a while, Shi Shanshan's face appeared with sweat, and her delicate body began to tremble involuntarily. Shi Shanshan never dreamed that Yang Chen's spiritual awareness attack would be so fierce and so powerful that she had no other way but to resist it bitterly. At this moment, Shi Shanshan could still maintain a standing posture under the pressure of Yang Chen and did not fall down, which was not easy. This was still Yang Chen did not use more spiritual awareness attack methods, but simply crushed it with a strong spiritual awareness. If Yang Chen used the attack method recorded in the 3 Purities Secret Art, there would be no other possibility for Shi Shanshan to faint directly like at the beginning. However, even so, now Shi Shanshan's failure was already a foregone conclusion. It was only a matter of time before he was defeated by such a powerful and overbearing attack. After a few dozen breaths, Shi Shanshan's resistance had reached its limit. However, this girl had a proud personality and had no intention of admitting defeat. She continued to resist. Her legs were almost unable to support her weight. After 3 to 5 breaths, her legs finally gave way and she slowly fell to the ground. Of course, Yang Chun wouldn't watch Shi Shanshan fall to the ground. Shi Shanshan's body moved, and he appeared beside her. He reached out to support Shi Shanshan's body and withdrew his divine sense. Shi Shanshan didn't lose consciousness. She just looked at Yang Chun with a complicated expression. Yang Chun lowered his head and smiled. With 2 sedative pills in his mouth, he kissed Shi Shanshan's lips again and passed the 2 sedative pills to her. Surprisingly, Shi Shanshan didn't refuse Yang Chen's action. She closed her eyes shyly and accepted Yang Chen's kindness. Do you want to continue? Yang Chen looked at Shi Shanshan, who had recovered. After getting a positive answer, he helplessly made a gesture of 9, the 9th time. This time, Yang Chen didn't use any magic weapon. He attacked Shi Shanshan with his bare hands. Shi Shanshan's flying sword was punched by Yang Chen again and again, but it couldn't leave any trace on Yang Chen's hands. Every time Yang Chen attacked with great power, he could always leave a huge pit on the ground where Shi Shanshan was standing. After dozens of punches, the valley where the 2 of them were had completely sunk by about 10 feet. Every punch of Yang Chen was like a huge hammer, pounding the ground firmly. Shi Shanshan's expression finally changed. The pure power that Yang Chen showed was beyond Shi Shanshan's expectations. She never thought that a person could have such great power that her 2 flying swords were broken by Yang Chen's bare fists. She thought that Yang Chen's huge body would definitely be lacking in speed. However, when Yang Chen really chased after her and attacked her, Shi Shanshan found that the speed that she was proud of was not worth mentioning in front of Yang Chen. If Yang Chen hadn't held back in every punch and hit her body, maybe Shi Shanshan would have broken bones and tendons by now. Unable to fight head-on, Shi Shanshan could only dodge. After dodging, she still couldn't escape the fate of being blocked by Yang Chen in the corner. When Yang Chen stretched out his arms and blocked Shi Shanshan's escape routes, and there was hard mountain rock behind her, there was nowhere to escape. Shi Shanshan had to admit that she still lost this challenge. Not only that, but she was also defeated to the point that she couldn't say anything. Yang Chen didn't rely on any external force. He just relied on his strong body, great power, and ghostly speed. This was also the battle that made Shi Shanshan feel the most powerless. Naturally, Yang Chen just tightened his arms and hugged Shi Shanshan in front of his chest. He was very impolite and kissed Shi Shanshan's red lips heavily. Shi Shanshan just sighed secretly, but she took the initiative to close her eyes and feel Yang Chen's domineering kiss. After a long time, the 2 separated. Yang Chen looked at Shi Shanshan with some inquiry again, as if asking her if she wanted to continue. Of course, the stubborn Shi Shanshan still nodded. Therefore, Yang Chen could only stretch out his hands and stretched out all his fingers. The 10th time, when he stretched out his hands, Yang Chen's arms didn't move. Instead, he directly said to Shi Shanshan, "This is the last time. How about we fight head-on with spiritual power?" Of course, Shi Shanshan wouldn't have any opinion. The magic weapon was not as good as Yang Chen. The flame control was not as good as Yang Chen. The spiritual awareness was not as good as Yang Chen. The strength was not as good as Yang Chen. And the speed was not as good as Yang Chen. If her spiritual power in the late Jidan stage was not as good as Yang Chen, wouldn't it be strange? But the fact was so cruel. When Shi Shanshan used all her strength and couldn't beat Yang Chen by half a step, Shi Shanshan noticed that it was not good. When Yang Chen attacked, Shi Shanshan found that she was vulnerable. Yang Chen used 2 ways. One was the positive 5 elements attack, and the other was the reverse 5 elements attack. The reverse 5 elements attack, the spiritual power that entered Shi Shanshan's body became a huge millstone, and Shi Shanshan's spiritual power was wiped out. Then Yang Chen's spiritual power entered Shi Shanshan's body. The positive 5 elements attack, the spiritual power of the 5 elements, instantly destroyed all the resistance of Shi Shanshan, and also attacked Shi Shanshan's internal organs. If it weren't for Yang Chen's timely withdrawal at the last minute, Sure Shan would have been seriously injured. Shan, marry me. Yang Chun hugged Sure Shan's delicate body with both hands and said this request. 10 challenges. Sure Shan was not spared, and all were defeated. At this moment, where was the original pride and persistence of Sure Shan? Where was the cold arrogance of a cold plum fairy? In the arms of Yang Chun, she was like a weak woman who needed gentle care and nodded shyly. Yang Chun was overjoyed and said nothing more. He kissed Sure Shan's lips directly. Sure Shan was no longer reserved. She closed her eyes and took the initiative to hug Yang Chun's neck. She stuck out her tongue and kissed Yang Chun. Chapter 784. From the bottom of her heart, Sure Shan's proposal to Yang Chun was still very willing, but she was somewhat unwilling to share it with the other 3 women. However, she also knew that it was impossible to let Yang Chun give up the 3 women, so she put forward such a condition. She thought that she could make Yang Chun work hard for a long time, but now it seems that she was the silly girl who looked at the sky from the bottom of the well. Yang Chun used 10 challenges, and each time he used a completely different way to defeat Sure Shan. Whether it was with a magic weapon or with his own cultivation base, Sure Shan was like a toddler in front of Yang Chun, without any resistance. This strong style also made Sure Shan completely fascinated. The Tao companion in her mind was such a strong character. Not only must he be the champion of the world, but he also must be famous. In this regard, Yang Chun was almost completely in line. Yang Chun could easily defeat herself 10 times. This Weon was already needless to say. Sure Shan was not a person who belittled herself. Almost no one dared to say that she was the opponent of the same cultivation base as her. As for being famous in the world, the 5th grade alchemist master was enough to make Yang Chun the strongest alchemist master in history. She originally thought about whether she should secretly throw the game in the challenge once or twice to let Yang Chun complete the challenge. Now that idea seems to have become the most ridiculous joke. Yang Chun easily defeated the most proud part of Sure Shan. Such an excellent person, coupled with the same hobbies. Even if Sure Shan was an iceberg, she would melt in front of Yang Chun. After completely letting go, she enjoyed the warmth in Yang Chun's arms. As a proud daughter of heaven, it has always been Sure Shan who bears everything alone, no matter what difficulties and dangers she faces. Now, Sure Shan finally has an embrace to relax in. She can act like a normal woman. Someone cares for her. Someone loves her. This feeling was so blissful. When Yang Chun and Sure Shan appeared in front of Gao Yu and Sun Qingxue again, Sure Shan had restored her usual expression. Others could not see that when she was alone with Yang Chun. The enthusiasm she showed was even more excessive than that of Gong Sunling. Greetings, big sister. Seeing Gao Yu, Sure Shan was a little unnatural, but she quickly regained her composure and bowed to Gao Yu. Since Yang Chun had defeated Sure Shan had to keep her promise and marry Yang Chun. In this way, Gao Yu should be the first wife, and she was also the oldest. No matter what, Sure Shan had to call Gao Yu elder sister. Gao Yu knew the result almost immediately. It was one thing to be able to guess it, but it was another thing to see it happen. Seeing Sure Shan bowing, Gao Yu also hurriedly returned the salute, sister, don't be too polite. Sun Qingxue, of course, also guessed the result. Seeing Sure Shan's performance, she remembered that she seemed to have not formally met Gao Yu. She hurriedly learned from Sure Shan and also saluted Gao Yu. Little sister has seen big sister. Gao Yu was also full of joy. After returning the salute, she took the hands of the 2 women and said with a smile, we have not had a good chat with our sisters. Let's go to my sister and sit together. Before leaving, Gao Yu told Yang Chun, the head of the palace asked you to see him immediately after you come back. After that, she took the 2 women and quickly left Yang Chun's alchemy room. The head of the palace wanted to see Yang Chun, and Yang Chun certainly knew what it was for. When Yang Chun challenged Sure Shan, Gao Yu had already given the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill, refined by Yang Chun, to the head of the palace. The disciple of the sect had an alchemy genius that was not seen in 10,000 years. With the cultivation base of the early Jidan stage, he refined a 5th-grade medicinal pill and became the 1st-grade alchemist master. After receiving the news, the head of the palace was so excited that he almost sang loudly, forcibly restraining his excitement. After the head of the palace informed the other elders, everyone was waiting for the arrival of Yangchen together. What was the result of challenging the cold plum fairy? As soon as Yangchen appeared, the head of the palace asked with a smile. Of course, this was just a polite question. When Yangchen brought back the body of the 2nd city master from the banyan tree Immortal's cave, everyone never doubted that Yangchen could not defeat a master of the Jidan stage, even if it was a genius among the masters of the Jidan stage. Shanshan has already promised to get married. The head of the palace called Shi Shanshan Fairy, but from the perspective of Yangchen, now that Shi Shanshan was his wife, it was natural to use a more intimate title. The 5th-grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill, was it really refined by you? Zhu Qintao next to him couldn't help it anymore. As the hall master of the medicinal hall, he was still only a 3rd-grade alchemist master. Yangchen, the disciple he had always been optimistic about, had actually reached the level of the 5th-grade alchemist master. The most excited one was him. No one understood the difficulty and significance of the 5th-grade alchemist master better than Zhu Qintao, although everyone knew that the 5th-grade alchemist master was already an unprecedented feat. But as an alchemist master, Zhu Qintao understood it more thoroughly and professionally. The reason why there has never been a 5th-grade alchemist master in the mortal world was that after surpassing the 3rd grade, each grade upgrade was a huge moat for the alchemist master. This was definitely not easier than a person from the beginning of cultivation to the ascension tribulation. Even Yangchen, in fact, also used the powerful ability of the profound spirit furnace to upgrade the 4.5-grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill to the 5th grade. With his current cultivation base, it was not enough to reach that realm. However, no one knew this. What everyone saw was that Yangchen, in front of Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan, directly started from the raw materials and successfully refined the 5th-grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill. In this way, the condition proposed by the Blue Cloud sect was not worth mentioning at all. In other words, in addition to the Cold Plum Fairy Shi Shanshan, the Dancing Snow Fairy Sun Qingxue was already one of Yangchen's nominal wives. In the past few days of waiting for Yangchen, the mood of the head of the palace and the elders had slowly changed from excitement to joy. Everyone knew what the emergence of a 5th-grade alchemist master in Chunyang Palace meant for Chunyang Palace. They didn't dare to say anything else. Once this news came out, not to mention the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island that have been on good terms with Chunyang Palace, even the 5-element sect and Qingquan sect, even the Taishaman, had to reconsider some things. From a moment they knew that Yangchen had refined the 5th-grade medicinal pill, the head of the palace and the elders had been immersed in ecstasy. Even in the past few days, they had not practiced much. Everyone saw the real hope of the rise of Chunyang Palace. Chapter 785. It is this disciple. In the face of Elder Zhu Qintao's inquiry, Yangchen replied very respectfully, and his attitude was no different from before. There was no neglect because he had become a 5th-grade alchemist master. Although they had already seen the 5th-grade Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill, at the moment when everyone heard Yangchen's own admission, everyone still felt their hearts beating wildly. 5th-grade medicinal pill. In the mortal world, this could almost be said to be a super medicinal pill at the spirit pill level. The Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill could treat the injuries below the Yuanying stage. Now that it has been refined by the 5th grade, what kind of medicinal effect would it have? Immediately, everyone thought of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island who came to ask Yangchen to treat the injuries of the 3 masters of the Deshang stage. The 5th-grade medicinal pill was enough to completely cure the injuries of the masters of the Deshang stage. It was self-evident what curing the 3 masters of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island meant for the Chunyang Palace. Even if there was no cooperation with the 100,000 mountains in the future, and there was no sharing of the previous questioning inner heart pills. This alone was enough to make the two major sects completely stand behind the Chunyang Palace and face any strong enemy. At the thought of the rise of the Chunyang Palace in the hands of everyone, including the head of the palace, all the elders were trembling with excitement, and there was no calmness that a master of the Yuanying stage should have. It was not that everyone's state of mind was insufficient, but the news was a bit too shocking. The Pill Cauldron sect has never had a master with strong combat power, but it has a very high status among the major sect because there have been several fourth-grade alchemist masters in the sect. So far, no one has dared to be rude to the Pill Cauldron sect because of this. Now that there was a fifth-grade alchemist master in the Chunyang Palace, it was a more powerful alchemist master than the masters of the Pill Cauldron sect. Not to mention the ordinary sects, even the Taishaman had to express a certain amount of respect to Yang Chun. As for the assassin organization, even if they were given 10 guts, they would not dare to accept the assassination mission of a fifth-grade alchemist. Not to mention a Tier 5 alchemist. Even a Tier 4 alchemist would be a big shot who would be protected. Anyone who dared to make a move against Yang Chun would definitely be directly provoking the hostility of all the cultivators in the world. Anyone who is tired of living could go ahead and try. No one can guarantee that they will not ask for an alchemist in their life, especially an alchemist who has mastered the refining of the inner sensing pill, questioning inner heart pill, and heaven-seizing pill, let alone a fifth-grade alchemist. The first-grade questioning inner heart pill could already make a master of the Deshang stage breakthrough. What was the effect of the second-grade alchemist, except for the people around Yang Chun? No one knew so far. Not to mention rank 3, rank 4, or even rank 5. The efficacy of other medicinal pills was the same. The heaven-seizing pill might be rare, but the inner sensing pill could be easily refined. The second-grade inner sensing pill could allow a master of the peak Jiedon stage to break through to the nascent soul stage. The effect of the third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, just imagining it could make people look forward to it. How many cultivators who were trapped on the verge of breaking through would regard Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace as a savior? How could these people not have a few masters and friends? The combined power was enough to make the big sect ashamed. Even if it was a few major sects, the medicinal pills that could make people break through were only at the level of the nascent soul pill. When it came to crossing the tribulation to the Deshang stage, there were almost no medicinal pills that could provide help. But now it was different. The effect of the third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade inner sensing pill was not known, but the effect of the questioning inner heart pill was real. After Wang Yong and the three masters of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and Blue Cloud sect, who had just been promoted to the Deshang stage, who would doubt it again? In the eyes of others, Chunyang Palace was not like some big sect. They had the secret recipe of the nascent soul pill in their hands, but they kept it secret. Of course, it was normal to protect the secret recipe, and the same was true for Chunyang Palace, but it was extremely difficult for other sect people, including rogue cultivators, to get these medicinal pills. It was impossible to rely on favors to ask for it. Seizing it by force was a joke in the face of a big sect. Even if they wanted to exchange it with spirit stones, it was impossible. This was the advantage of being a disciple of a big sect, and it was impossible to give it to outsiders. However, Chunyang Palace was different. At least now the Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect asked Chunyang Palace for medicine. As long as they paid enough price and prepared their own raw materials, Chunyang Palace would still give them a lot of face. This made everyone naturally have a good impression on Chunyang Palace. The news did not come out before, but after several Deshang stage masters appeared in Chunyang Palace, Blue Cloud sect, and the Green Jade Immortal Island, the reputation of the questioning inner heart pill spread like wildfire, and it was no longer a secret of the big sect. Those rogue cultivators who were trapped in a certain state between the peak Yuanying stage and the Deshang stage immediately saw hope. For these people, they were not afraid of how difficult it was to get the raw materials. They were afraid of having the raw materials, but no one to help them refine. The reason why the Pill Cauldron sect had a transcendent status was that they were willing to help their peers refine and improve their own alchemy level. Even if the alchemy failed, everyone would still rush to it. Chunyang Palace did not close the door to everyone to ask for medicine, and there was still a fifth-grade alchemist master who helped them. If the masters wanted to ask for medicine, they naturally knew how to choose. In this way, Chunyang Palace was equivalent to having countless masters who were willing to secretly protect Chunyang Palace. Anyone who wanted to make a move on Chunyang Palace must think about the consequences of angering these masters who could not break through. Even Taishamen were no exception. Yang Chun is the young palace master of the sect. Is there anyone who has any objection? At this juncture, the head of the palace finally put forward this proposal that had been conceived for a long time in front of the elders. Who would have any objections? Not to mention Yang Chen's contributions to the sect over the years. This fifth-grade alchemist master alone was enough for the sect to put all the treasures on Yang Chun. This motion, almost in less than 10 breaths after it was put forward, was unanimously passed by the elders present. When they raised their hands, the elders did not even hesitate. In this way, Yang Chun from this time is the young palace master of my sect. The head of the palace directly announced, in the future, the disciples of the sect will be at your disposal, and the resources of the sect will also be at your disposal. Given the status, he would give the corresponding status and power. However, compared to the status of a young palace master, the power to be able to dispatch the disciples of the sect and the resources of the sect was too great, but none of the elders present had any objections, and it was unanimously approved. Since the conditions of the two major sects have been met, the old man will go again and settle the marriage of Yang Chun and the cold plum fairy and dancing snow fairy. The head of the palace looked at Yang Chun, and the more he looked, the more satisfied he was, and said with a smile, "The sect must prepare a grand wedding for you." Chapter 786. The next discussion was the key point. Yang Chun was now a real fifth-grade alchemist master, and Yang Chun also said that the 3 fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills were to be used to heal the 3 Deshang stage masters of the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. This news could not be concealed. In this case, then Yang Chun, the 5th-grade alchemist master, would appear in front of all the cultivators. The 5th-grade alchemist master was definitely a heavy bomb dropped in the world of cultivators. No, it was definitely the level of a nuclear bomb. It would definitely set off a big wave that could not be suppressed in the entire world of cultivators. Chunyang Palace had such a big killer weapon. It would definitely rise strongly. Now, the head of the palace and the elders were going to discuss how to take the greatest initiative in the next days. Of course, the first question to be determined was whether Yang Chun was willing to refine medicinal pills for other sect or cultivators. There is a high reward. Of course, this disciple is willing. Yang Chun replied with a smile. In fact, he had already refined the questioning inner heart pills for the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, and also refined the medicinal pills for the Black Tiger predecessor to heal his injuries. Even this time, the 5th-grade medicinal pills were also refined for the 2 major sects. Yang Chun really did not have the idea of not refining for other sects. However, in the future, if there are cultivators below the Yuanying stage asking for pills, don't look for this disciple. Yang Chun then added another sentence, the medicinal pills below the Yuanying stage. This disciple will only refine them for the disciples of Chunyang Palace. Now that Yang Chun was already a 5th-grade alchemist master, anyone who wanted to ask Yang Chun to refine a few foundation-building pills, it was really not putting this 5th-grade alchemist master in their eyes. This limitation was also normal. Of course, the 2nd-grade inner sensing pill, which could be used in the Jidan stage, Yang Chun would still refine it, but only for the Chunyang Palace. This is natural. The head of the palace directly nodded in agreement. A 5th-grade alchemy grandmaster was not refining medicinal pills for small fish. Even if Yang Chun and Chunyang Palace were willing, those great masters waiting to ask for elixir pills would never be happy to see it. In my opinion, it's better to set a deadline. Zhu Chantao, the hall master of the medicine hall, quickly said, "We can't delay the young palace master's cultivation. If he is delayed by someone else's alchemy, it will not be worth it." In this regard, Zhu Chantao had experience and knew how to reasonably allocate the time between alchemy and cultivation. This suggestion was very pertinent. Yes, This must be taken into consideration. Everyone nodded. Everyone understood that the ones who needed Yang Chen's help must be masters of the Yuanying stage or even the Deshang stage. The medicinal pills they needed could not be completed in a few days. At least it had to be calculated in units of years. If Yang Chen was always tied down by alchemy, his cultivation would inevitably fall behind a little. This time must be fixed. Once in 50 years, how about it? Wang Yong, as a master ancestor, of course, considered his own grand disciple, and immediately said, the higher the cultivation base of Yang Chen, the greater the certainty of alchemy. I think the people who ask for elixir will understand, right? 50 years? Maybe some people can't wait. The head of the palace said. He knew better than anyone what a 5th-grade alchemist master meant. The 3rd-grade alchemist masters of the Pill Cauldron sect were almost in short supply. In the decades after Deng Ya refined the heaven-seizing pill, she was finally promoted to a 4th-grade alchemist master by relying on the gains from the refining of the heaven-seizing pill. Now she was so busy that her feet did not touch the ground. A 5th-grade alchemist master, it was estimated that there would be people who would break the threshold to come to the door. It must be known that those who could come to the door were definitely masters of the Deshang stage or peak Yuanying stage. Others were not qualified. Even if the sect came forward, it must at least be a second-rate sect similar to Chunyang Palace. These people came forward to ask for help, and sometimes Chunyang Palace might not be able to withstand the pressure. Prepare your own medicinal materials, prepare your own pill recipe, or use this disciple's pill recipe. There is no guarantee of success in alchemy. After listening to a few words from the side, Yang Chen finally interrupted and said, the reward must be enough. If these are agreed, it is not impossible to make a move once in 20 years. Making a move once in 20 years, this time was of course more acceptable than 50 years. As for the conditions that Yang Chen said, almost every alchemist master had the same requirements. He, a 5th-grade alchemist master, had almost no special requirements. If the person who asked for the pill did not accept it, it would mean that he was deliberately making things difficult. It was not a last resort, similar to the situation of the seriously injured Deshang stage masters of the 2 major sect, who would waste the opportunity of a 5th-grade alchemist master. Since it was a request to come to the door, it was naturally up to Yang Chen. Whether to agree or not, it was ultimately up to Yang Chen's own choice. There would definitely be more than 1 or 2 people coming to the door at the same time. Of course, there must be a sequence. Who would be given first, of course, it also depended on Yang Chen's willingness. It depended on whether the reward they prepared could move Yang Chen. To put it bluntly, now Yang Chen had the qualifications to wait for a good price. Even if it was a Deshang stage master, they had to look at Yang Chen's face. No one would be willing to offend a 5th-grade alchemist master, which meant that they would also offend all the masters who were looking forward to Yang Chen's help in refining medicinal pills. As long as this news came out, no killer would dare to take the reward of assassinating Yang Chen. No one would want to become enemies with hundreds of Deshang stage masters and countless sect masters at the moment they took the reward. This was the reality. Even if it was the Taishaman, if they wanted to make a move on Yang Chen, they would have to think about it. Yang Chen was now the treasure of the entire cultivation world. Even if the Taishaman have always been the leader of the Dao sects, they did not dare to offend all the Dao sects. It was even possible that the Taishaman would come to ask for help. It must be known that in the Secret Plane incident, the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect added up to seriously injure 3 Dashang stage masters, and the Taishaman were also seriously injured. If they didn't want to lose 3 Dashang stage masters after hundreds of years, they would eventually have to ask Yang Chen for alchemy. As for whether Yang Chen was willing to help them with alchemy at that time, it depended on Yang Chen's own mood. The initiative was in the hands of Yang Chen and Chunyang Palace, and the Taishaman were helpless. When they thought of the face of the Taishaman at that time, everyone's heart was full of expectations. After so many years of humiliation, it was finally time to slowly reap the rewards. Little by little, they watched the Taishaman decline under the design of their own disciple. When the time came, the Taishaman would have to come to ask for help. How refreshing was that? 20 years is too short. You can't show your preciousness. The head of the palace still wrote it down and made a decision, according to the conditions that Yang Chan said. Once every 25 years, I think no one will be dissatisfied. So it's settled. When the head of the palace opened his mouth, the time was determined. Now, they were waiting for the moment when Yang Chen's medicinal pills caused a sensation in the two major sects. Chapter 787. During the more than 2 years of Yang Chen's alchemy, Gong Sumling also went out to gain experience and returned to Chunyang Palace again. When Yang Chen went to see the head of the palace, the 4 women had already rearranged their seats. Gao Yu is obviously the big sister of the women. There is no doubt about this, and no one had any objections. Shi Shanshan was the second sister in terms of age. Gong Sumling was ranked 3rd, and Sun Qingxue became the youngest sister. When Yang Chen was not there, the 4 women were very harmonious. It seemed that the 4 women were obviously divided into 2 small groups. Gao Yu and Gong Sumling came out of Chunyang Palace together and were very close, while Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan were closer. Yang Chen looked at the 4 women who were getting along well together, and there was a kind of unspeakable pride in his heart. In his previous life, he dared to have such extravagant hopes, to be able to marry the famous Cold Plum Fairy and Dancing Snow Fairy, and also to accept his most beloved master and most regretful senior sister at the same time. Even the Jade Emperor at that time, it was estimated that he did not dare to have such an idea. Now, it would soon become a reality. How could all this not make Yang Chen feel proud and satisfied? Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan finally arrived at the time to return to the sect. Each of them had 2 and 1/5 revolution Lingji mushroom jade pill with them. The head of the palace agreed with the 2 women that they would first follow Sun Qingxue to the Blue Cloud sect and then go to the Green Jade Immortal Island with Shi Shanshan. The conditions proposed by the 2 major sects, Yang Chen had been fully satisfied, and naturally he would once again propose to the 2 major sects. In this regard, the 2 women had no objection and agreed with a red face. The head of the palace was also an elder of Yang Chen at the moment. In front of the head of the palace, they also had some shyness of a little girl. Reluctantly bidding farewell to Yang Chen, the 2 women set off with the head of the palace. Yang Chen had been watching the team get out of his line of sight, and then he gave up. The marriage proposal was handled by the head of the palace, and Yang Chen had other arrangements. It had been 32 years since Yang Chen left Mubo. Yang Chen had said that 30 years later, he would pick up Mubo and his family back to Chunyang Palace. It was time to fulfill his promise. Gong Sumling had been wandering in the territory of Taoism recently. It was said that she was training, but she was basically completing the geography of Taoism on the geographical map of mountains and rivers. In the past few years, she had already traveled to the core places of Taoism. On the geographical map of mountains and rivers, there was at least a map as big as the East Sea. Yang Chen went to the demon race's northernmost territory. Together with Gong Sumling, they made up for this part of the territory. After a little preparation, the 2 set foot on the road to the north. The head of the palace came to the Blue Cloud sect this time. He was completely holding his head high. Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan both knew why the head of the palace had such an attitude, but no one said anything. Sun Qingxue's heart was even very sweet, and there were many more expectations. The appearance of the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill was really like a nuclear bomb. It almost made the Blue Cloud sect's top executives faint. Sect Master Lu looked at the 2 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pills sent by his disciples, and his brain seemed to short-circuit, and he lost the ability to think. He thought that with the restriction of his 5th grade medicinal pill, without hurting the friendship between the 2 sects, he could let Yang Chen marry Sun Qingxue when he reached the Deshang stage. This was good for both sides, and in order to meet the requirements, Yang Chen would be more diligent in studying alchemy, which could bring more benefits to the Blue Cloud sect. The preparation of the 5th grade Qi nourishing pills was to leave a way out for Yang Chen. At that time, the Blue Cloud sect would marry Sun Qingxue, and Yang Chen would be grateful to the Blue Cloud sect because of this arrangement. The Blue Cloud sect would easily gain the friendship of a future alchemy master. Even if he went to the spiritual world, he would still be in the hands of the Blue Cloud sect. The Green Jade Immortal Island also had the same plan: first set the conditions, and then finally grant the results. This method of loosening the reins only to grasp better. The two major sects played it to perfection. However, all of this in the hands of the two fifth-grade Lingji mushroom jade pills, all turned into bubbles. The foresight when making this arrangement before has completely turned into shock. The well-informed sect master and the elders of the Blue Cloud sect were shocked and could no longer speak. The authenticity of the medicinal pill no longer needed to be verified. The Blue Cloud sect's medicine hall master took it for a full 2 hours. In addition to being stunned, there was only amazement. And Sun Qingxue has already said that this medicinal pill was refined under the eyes of her and Shi Shanshan. There was no fake at all. Yang Chun was already a 5th-grade alchemy master. This news directly shocked Sect Master Lu and several Deshang stage elders. In this world, was there really a 5th-grade alchemy master? Sect Master Lu had seen the 5th-grade medicinal pill, but it was refined after the consciousness clone of the predecessors of the Heavenly Court descended, and it was only the simplest chi-nourishing pill. In the case of 99% memory loss of the predecessor, it was only at the last moment that he succeeded in refining it by relying on the alchemy technique that he had practiced for a long time. After the success, the consciousness clone lost its life. Now, the Lingji mushroom jade pill, which was known to be able to treat all injuries below the Yuanying stage, had actually appeared as a 5th-grade medicinal pill. How could this be a shock? What kind of a heaven-defying evildoer was Yang Chun? What kind of dogshit luck did the Chunyang Palace have to have such an outstanding disciple? After the initial shock, Sect Master Lu was worthy of being in charge of the Blue Cloud sect for many years, and soon recovered the ability to think. Such an excellent and heaven-defying level of the future alchemy master. No, the current alchemy master, if the Blue Cloud sect did not catch him, it would be the biggest fool in the world. When is the wedding? The most direct answer was to ask this question. Now, is there anything more important than immediately using marriage to tie Yang Chun and the Blue Cloud sect together? Let's first settle the marriage and wait for the two injured elders of your sect to recover from their injuries. Then the wedding is not too late. The master of the palace had never had a moment in front of Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect. Even when he took the questioning inner heart pill, he did not have such a feeling. The meaning of the master of the palace was very clear. Don't say when the wedding would be. Look at the authenticity of the 5th-grade Lingji mushroom jade pill. This medicinal pill was originally refined for the two injured Deshang stage masters, and wait for their injuries to heal to prove that this medicinal pill was not a fake thing. At that time, when the wedding would be determined, so as to avoid what the Blue Cloud sect would say in the future. This was not the condition set before the master of the palace took the opportunity to respond to the Blue Cloud sect, but at this moment, the initiative has undergone earth-shaking changes. Chapter 788. Everyone wanted to know how the effect of this 5th-grade medicinal pill was. Therefore, including the head of the Chunyang Palace, Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect, and a group of high-level officials, all appeared in front of the two injured Deshang stage elders. The two elders who were recuperating didn't know what had happened at all. They were carried by a few familiar elders and servants to a room with a spirit vein that had already been arranged for them. Then, they saw a bunch of people with faces full of anticipation. Because of the serious injuries, the two could not control their appearance freely. At this moment, both of them looked like old women. Their hair was white, and their faces were full of wrinkles. Even breathing was a little difficult for them. Their muscles were loose, and they were trembling unnaturally. At first glance, they looked like two old women who had one foot in the grave and were about to die. They had nothing to do with experts. The two medicinal pills were sent to the hands of the two people, and the intention was self-evident. The two elders of the Deshang stage, even if they were behind closed doors and ignorant, they found the extraordinary medicinal pills in their hands. The 5-pill inscriptions on the pill directly shocked the two of them. If it weren't for the fact that they were forcibly suppressing their injuries and had an incomparably firm will, Perhaps the two of them would have been so shocked by this pill that their injuries would have been triggered and they would have vomited blood. 5th grade, Lingji Mushroom Jade Pill. Who has ever seen such a heaven-defying thing? In the eyes of the two injured elders, this was no less than an elixir. Almost without hesitation, the two of them each took a medicinal pill, forcibly put on a cultivation posture, and began to digest the medicinal power in the medicinal pill. However, this move was purely superfluous. As soon as the medicinal pill entered their mouth, it turned into a warm current and quickly penetrated into the limbs of the two people. The meridians that were almost completely broken began to recover under the influence of this heat flow. The trace of overbearing but very gentle medicinal power began to repair the damage to those meridians little by little. Every moment, the two could perceive the changes in their bodies. The meridians that had been completely uncontrolled were recovering little by little, which made the two elders of the Dashang stage overjoyed. The reason why their injuries were so severe was that they couldn't even use their own spiritual power to repair themselves, nor could they use the power of others to recover. Now that the pills were recovering bit by bit, their control over their bodies was also strengthening bit by bit. This was completely a sign of recovery. In a very short period of time, about 1/10 of the meridian's injuries had recovered. Although it was not comparable to when they were at their peak, in this state, they could already start to slowly mobilize their own spiritual power. However, under the state of serious injury, his spiritual power was also almost exhausted, and there were only a few strands left in his body. Even if the two of them tried their best to control it, they could only barely lift it up a little. Even so, this was still an amazing improvement. Compared to before, when they couldn't use any spiritual power at all, it was like heaven and earth. With this trace of spiritual power, the recovery of his meridians seemed to have sped up a little. His internal organs also began to join in the recovery process. His internal organs, which had been severely damaged and were on the verge of shattering, seemed to have been glued together by the medicinal power. It warmed the broken wounds and slowly healed them. The medicinal power was extremely overbearing, but it was endless, but it did not bring any damage to the body. In the impression of the two Dashang stage elders, after a while, they had already made the completely uncontrollable body have signs of being able to command. This process of improvement was constantly deepening, and more spiritual power began to join in this process. For their own body, there was nothing better than the nourishment of their own spiritual power. With the help of the medicinal power, the spiritual power of the two elders also began to slowly recover. It was a process of mutual promotion and supplementation. The medicinal power repaired the injuries of the meridians and internal organs, so that the two elders could slowly mobilize their spiritual power. In turn, the nourishment of the spiritual power accelerated the healing of the injury and promoted the further effect of the medicinal power, complementing each other. The healing process was getting faster and faster, and the medicinal power seemed to have begun to penetrate into the two elders' sea of consciousness. Most of the elders whose sea of consciousness had been destroyed soon discovered that the almost collapsed sea of consciousness was slowly recovering, slowly expanding, and the spiritual awareness was also rapidly improving. The recovery of the spiritual awareness, in turn, led to the recovery of the sea of consciousness, which was also a positive process of promotion. The top executives of the Blue Cloud sect and the head of the palace were staring at the two elders nervously. They were surprised to see the two seriously injured elders, who had already been dispirited to the extreme and only had a little vitality left. In front of them, it was like two old trees that slowly sprouted new buds, little by little blooming vitality. With more and more vitality, the breath of the two elders began to slowly stabilize, no longer the image of an old man, and the wrinkles were reduced a lot. Although they still had white hair, they were already very spirited. This process was still constantly changing. The momentum of the two elders also began to slowly improve, and the aura of the masters of the Dashang stage was also returning to the two. Their breathing, which was originally rapid, was gradually slowing down, becoming longer and denser, and the spiritual power around the two elders had also gathered a lot. At this point, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. At least in this situation, the worst kind of injury has been maintained. Even if the medicinal power has no effect, the two elders could rely on their own cultivation base to recover. At most, in a few decades, they could become the masters of the Dashang stage who could shake the world. The previous injury, even after hundreds of years, was not necessarily able to recover. Now, in a few decades, they could recover as before. The efficacy of the medicinal pill was evident. However, this was not the end. In the eyes of everyone's nervous and expectant eyes, in just a short period of 1 month, the two masters of the Dashang stage, who could almost be said to be dying and waiting for death, had undergone a reborn change. The wrinkles had completely disappeared, and the appearance of the two elders had been restored to the appearance of two middle-aged women. Except for the white hair, there was no trace of the characteristics of an old woman, and the momentum of the two rose all the way to the peak. A month later, almost at the same time, the two white-haired beauties stood up. The spiritual power of their whole body was surging, and the momentum was soaring. Where was there any sign of injury? The two women looked at each other, as if they had a tacit understanding. They stood on the opposite side of Sect Master Lu, bowed deeply to Sect Master Lu, and said in unison, "Greetings, Sect Master." Chapter 789. With this bow, it could almost be said that the two women had completely fallen to Sect Master Lu. Everyone understood the preciousness of the 5th-grade medicinal pill, and such a medicinal pill was obviously not what the Blue Cloud sect could refine, nor was it owned by the Blue Cloud sect. As the users of the 5th-grade Lingji Mushroom Jade pill, they knew better than anyone what these two medicinal pills meant, and as the elders of the Blue Cloud sect, they also knew that for these two medicinal pills, what kind of price the sect would pay, and how much Sect Master Lu would owe. The life-saving grace, plus the resources of the questioning inner heart pill in the hands of Sect Master Lu, was enough to make anyone completely become Sect Master Lu's people. Even if their injuries were caused by Sect Master Lu sending them out to find the secret plane. But both women knew that Sect Master Lu did not force them, but asked for their opinions and promised to let them choose half of the benefits of the secret plane resources. So they were tempted. They couldn't blame others. When they reached the realm of the Dashang stage, whether it was karma or not, they could see it clearly, so the two women did not hesitate to turn to the side of Sect Master Lu. For Sect Master Lu, this was simply an unexpected surprise. The two Dashang stage elders who originally opposed her own allegiance also meant that she would be in charge of the Blue Cloud sect from then on, and there would be no opposition. The Blue Cloud sect was also more united, which made Sect Master Lu ecstatic even more than getting the allegiance of the two Dashang stage elders. Everyone was pleasantly surprised, and there was no doubt about the effect of the 5th-grade Lingji Mushroom Jade pill. Naturally, Yang Chun, who could refine this kind of medicinal pill, had become the object that everyone had to look up to. Even if all the disciples of super sect like the Blue Cloud sect who specialize in alchemy were added up, they could not match the height that Yang Chun, an alchemist master, could reach. May I ask, Sect Master, where did this 5th-grade medicinal pill come from? The two white-haired beauties asked this question almost at the same time. This question had been buried in their hearts since they'd consumed the medicinal pills, and if they didn't ask it clearly, it would simply cause them to feel as if 100 claws were scratching at their hearts, and it was unbearable. This is the healing medicinal pill that the alchemy master of Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun, specially refined for you. Sect Master Lu did not hide it and quickly replied, "Yang Chun of Chunyang Palace." The two of them were shocked. A 5th-grade alchemist? It was not the first time for them to hear the name Yang Chun. He was involved in the questioning inner heart pill, and now he was involved in the 5th revolution medicinal pill. But as far as they knew, Yang Chun was just a junior in the gold core stage. How could it be possible? Little Shui and the Green Jade Immortal Island's little girl witnessed Yang Chen's alchemy. Sect Master Lu forcibly suppressed his shock and pretended to be calm and said this sentence. Now no one doubted the authenticity of the 5th-grade medicinal pill, but this fact was really shocking. There was actually a 5th-grade alchemist master in the mortal world, and he was only a 5th-grade alchemist master in the early Jidon stage. If his cultivation base was really raised to the Yuanying stage or the Dashang stage, what would it be like? 6th grade? 7th grade? Not to mention the spiritual world. Even in the immortal world, such a grade was already a super master in the alchemy world. Now, it was only in the mortal world. What monstrous genius! What master! It could no longer be perfectly expressed. There could only be one word to describe the current state of Yang Chun. His future was boundless. Such an alchemy master, if the Blue Cloud sect missed him, it would be the biggest fool in the world. At this time, the most important thing was to firmly grasp Yang Chun. Now, for the most proud one was probably the head of the palace. He saw with his own eyes that Yang Chen's medicinal pill cured 2 Dashang stage masters who had almost been completely crippled in just 1 month. The efficacy of this 5th-grade medicinal pill would no longer be doubted. Even if he was not the refiner of the medicinal pill, he still felt that kind of sincere pride. Even in front of so many masters of the Dashang stage, in front of a group of high-level people inside the Blue Cloud sect, the head of the palace could now hold his head high. No longer in the previous, slightly cautious state, he had truly become an equal collaborator. All of this was thanks to Yang Chen's 5th-grade medicinal pills. The group once again returned to the main hall of the Blue Cloud sect and sat down according to the guest and host. The marriage of Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue was once again put on the agenda. The marriage should be settled first. As for the date of the marriage, we will talk about it later. The initiative had undergone a complete change, and it was the Blue Cloud sect that was anxious, not the Chunyang Palace. The head of the palace spoke with full confidence. Yang Chun also said that his current cultivation method is not suitable for him to lose his virginity. When the body refining is successful, he will get married together. Everyone had seen the shape of Yang Chun, and they all understood that Yang Chun was cultivating a unique body refining technique. When the head of the palace said this, no one could refute it. They couldn't let Yang Chun destroy his cultivation to marry Sun Qingxue. Fortunately, the head of the palace said that they should first settle the marriage and settle the status first, which was an acceptable idea. Everyone nodded in agreement. As long as there was this status, coupled with the previous friendship between Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue, Yang Chun and the Blue Cloud sect could not be separated. Next, in addition to discussing the details of the engagement, the head of the palace took the initiative to tell the high-level members of the Blue Cloud sect that Yang Chun was willing to make an alchemy every 25 years. Naturally, those conditions must be said. For the Blue Cloud sect, this was great news. Yang Chun became a 5th-grade alchemist master, and he was still willing to make a move for outsiders. With the relationship between Sun Qingxue and Yang Chun, the Blue Cloud sect could also seize the initiative, not to mention that the Blue Cloud sect and the Chunyang Palace have been cooperating happily in recent decades. As for the success rate of alchemy materials, it was not worth mentioning at all. Would the Blue Cloud sect care about this? The palace master Zhang Jiao's marriage proposal had achieved a satisfactory result. After the marriage was set, Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue had the status of husband and wife. The 2 masters of the Dashang stage of the Blue Cloud sect were saved, and the cooperation between the Chunyang Palace and the Blue Cloud sect was closer. As for the reward for Yang Chen's treatment of the 2 masters, the Blue Cloud sect would naturally pay it in the future. Compared to winning over a 5th-grade alchemist master, the Blue Cloud sect would not care about the trivial property. However, what to use to repay Yang Chun was a matter worth pondering. It was necessary to cater to Yang Chen's favor. I heard that someone outside offered a bounty to hunt down Yang Chun. Is there such a thing? After sending away the head of the palace and Shi Shanshan, the first sentence of Sect Master Lu, when he returned to the main hall, was to ask about this matter. There are some rumors. The Foreign Affairs elder hurriedly replied. It is said that the reward is not low, and many people are tempted. Find out who it is. Who took the bounty? Sect Master Lu seemed to be calm on the surface and ordered, after finding it, kill them all. In the future, whether we can ascend or not, we can all rely on Yang Chun. We must not let people destroy it. Chapter 790. The expressions of the people of the Blue Cloud sect were exactly the same. When he held the 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill in his hand, the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island was also shocked. In this world, there was really a 5th grade medicinal pill, a 5th grade alchemy grandmaster. The most shocking thing was that Yang Chun, the younger generation, had actually become such a miraculous figure. In addition to the shock, the Lord of Tantai suddenly thought of another problem. Since Yang Chun has already refined the 5th grade medicinal pill, doesn't that mean that Sun Qingxue is already Yang Chen's wife? If this is the case, and the condition of Shi Shanshan is stuck, isn't the Green Jade Immortal Island alienated from Yang Chen? When the questioning eyes turned to Shi Shanshan's face, the clever Shi Shanshan did not wait for the Lord of Tantai to ask, and took the initiative to confess the result, reporting to the island lord. This disciple was also defeated by Yang Chun. After a pause, she added another sentence 10 times in a row, using different methods. The Lord of Tantai was even more shocked this time. It must be said that Yang Chen's alchemy talent was extremely strong, so he became a 5th grade alchemy grandmaster. At least there was a vein to follow. After all, Yang Chun had already refined the questioning inner heart pill and heaven-seizing pill, these heaven-defying medicinal pills. Becoming an alchemy grandmaster was also a matter of course. It was just that the time was a little earlier. However, as the island lord, the Lord of Tantai knew better than anyone how terrible the cultivation of this female disciple of his sect was, and how strong her combat power was. Not to mention a junior in the early Jidan stage. Even the new Yuanying stage masters in the sect were not necessarily the opponents of Shi Shanshan. However, Shi Shanshan actually said that she was defeated by Yang Chun. How could this not make the Lord of Tantai shocked? It was normal for Shi Shanshan to go easy on him because she had someone else in her heart. However, she had defeated Shi Shanshan 10 times in a row using 10 different methods. This was definitely not because Shi Shanshan had gone easy on her. Based on Shi Shanshan's personality, she would never go easy on her opponent 10 times. Moreover, looking at Shi Shanshan's expression, she looked completely convinced and even a little shy. How could the Lord of Tantai not understand that Shi Shanshan had already been won over by Yang Chun and was willing to do it? This was something that the Lord of Tantai did not expect. In her mind, Yang Chun should at least rely on the 6th grade fire seed she gave him to cultivate to the late Yuanying realm. Maybe he could take advantage of Shi Shanshan's injury once or twice. At that time, it could be regarded as an explanation to Chunyang Palace, and it would not hurt their relationship. Unexpectedly, the arrangement of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect had just been put forward, and it was directly satisfied by Yang Chun in the most powerful way. It seemed that he still thought of Yang Chun simply. A guy who could survive the pursuit of a master of the late Deshang stage. How could he be a person who played tricks? Fortunately, after the request was made, he immediately sent Shi Shanshan to contact him and gave Yang Chun the solution, indicating that he was not making things difficult for him. Otherwise, now the Lord of Tantai did not know how to alleviate this unintentionally created contradiction. The marriage proposal of the head of the palace, the Lord of Tantai naturally agreed and no longer said any conditions. The 5th grade Lingji mushroom jade pill has been tested by 2 masters of the Deshang stage of the Blue Cloud sect. There was no problem, and it was directly sent to the injured elder. A group of high-level officials were also concentrated on the side of the injured elder, nervously watching the changes after the elder took the medicine. Although the 2 elders of the Blue Cloud sect have proved that the medicinal pill was effective, no one has seen the 5th grade medicinal pill, and they have not seen the appearance of the 5th grade medicinal pill, right? In almost a month, the injured elder changed from an old woman to a middle-aged beauty. However, the only regret was that the original black hair turned into gray hair, and it could not be changed for a while. But this also added to the elder's style. The white-haired beauty had a kind of charm that made people's eyes light up. Perhaps it was the credit of the island master asking for the medicinal pill, Or perhaps it was the shock brought by the fifth-grade medicinal pill. After the injured elder's injury was healed, she also expressed her allegiance to the Lord of Tantai. Perhaps the main reason was the questioning inner heart pill. She was not a master who was sure to cross the tribulation and ascend. Her hopes were all on the questioning inner heart pill, and the refiner of the questioning inner heart pill had now become the only fifth-grade alchemist master in the mortal world. It could only mean that better medicinal pills could be provided in the future. The relationship between the island master and Yang Chen was good, and naturally, it was also a key. Shi Shanshan's status in the Green Jade Immortal Island was not low. This time, it was even more impressive. No one could have imagined that the man that Shi Shanshan was looking for would have such a promising future. It could only show that she had a unique vision. Now that Shi Shanshan has been approved by the Island Master, she and Yang Chen have established a status, and everyone also knew that Yang Chen was willing to refine pills once every 25 years. This opportunity, of course, must be grasped by everyone. Naturally, Shi Shanshan, who had the closest relationship with Yang Chen, became even more popular in the eyes of everyone. In this situation, the master of the palace had already seen it once, but this was other people's family affairs, and the master of the palace would naturally not say much. Moreover, the wife of his own disciple was valued in the sect, which was of course a good thing, and the master of the palace was happy to see it. On the trip to the Green Jade Immortal Island, the master of the palace also received the highest standard of reception. After the close cooperation between the two sides, the master of the palace left contentedly and returned to Chunyang Palace. Yang Chen was already a fifth-grade alchemist master, and he was willing to refine medicinal pills for everyone. The news also spread among the top leaders of the two major sects. However, this was a secret. At least Chunyang Palace did not announce it to the public. Everyone was happy that this news did not spread, so that they could monopolize the resources. However, some things were doomed to be hidden. The two major sects, 3 seriously injured Deshang stage masters, in a short period of 3 months, all recovered to normal, and everyone had a very strange white hair. How could it not make people fantasize? Under the presence of several big sects' big figures, the two major sects could not completely block the news. Due to their face, they could only tell each other that this was the effect of the medicinal pills refined by Yang Chen of Chunyang Palace. At the same time, the news that Yang Chen was already a fifth-grade alchemist master began to spread among those big figures. In the circle of big figures that the small figures could not imagine, a storm was set off. A fifth-grade alchemist master was enough to make everyone pay attention to him. At this time, it was not a matter of believing it or not. The recovery of the 3 seriously injured Deshang stage masters had already explained everything. Didn't the 3 Taishamen still lie down and wait to die? There was an earlier spread in the circle, but everyone also learned the good news that Yang Chen was willing to make alchemy. During this time, the Foreign Affairs Hall at Chunyang Palace was like the most lively market, and in recent days, people began to come to the door. Chapter 791. A fifth-grade alchemist master. Almost everyone who heard it was shocked and stunned. This could be described as a miracle. A fifth-grade alchemist master in the mortal world. Was there anything more monstrous than this? Immediately afterward, everyone's first reaction after waking up was how to make friends with this fifth-grade alchemist master. There was no exception. What did Yang Chen like? What level of medicinal pills he was willing to refine? These needed to be understood. Some people have been trapped in certain realms for a long time. What they needed most was medicinal pills like the questioning inner heart pill. They knew what they needed very well. They wished they could fly to Chunyang Palace to see Yang Chen immediately. Those who had been in contact with Chunyang Palace before were naturally very happy. Those who had not been in contact also began to instruct their younger generations to be very polite to the people of Chunyang Palace in the future and not to provoke them. In short, in just a few months, the disciples of Chunyang Palace who went out to gain experience seemed to be aware of this difference. The big shots and masters began to rush in the direction of Chunyang Palace intentionally or unintentionally. In any case, they had to leave a good impression on Chunyang Palace. Even the high-level officials of Taishamen, Even if they already hated Yang Chun, they could not help but be shocked by this news. The person they secretly wanted to deal with had actually become a 5th-grade alchemist master, and was also willing to accept alchemy for outsiders. This made them feel like they had been struck by lightning. If it was only a 4th-grade alchemist master, then Taishaman themselves had such an alchemy master, and they would not care at all. But now Yang Chun had reached the 5th grade, the first person to carry on the past, and he had the complete pill recipe of the questioning inner heart pill and the heaven-seizing pill in his hand. There was also the 2nd grade, or even higher grade, inner sensing pill, which had established his lofty status in the minds of the cultivators. At this time, not to mention killing Yang Chun. Even if they revealed a little intention to kill Yang Chun, it was definitely against all the masters in the world who were trapped in a certain realm and could not be promoted. The Taishaman could rely on the strength of their own sect to suppress a few small sect and some rogue cultivators, but they would never dare to be the enemy of the whole world at the same time. Sending someone to kill Yang Chun was equivalent to making an enemy out of everyone in the world. More importantly, when they learned that the 3 seriously injured Deshang stage masters of the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and Blue Cloud sect had been cured under Yang Chen's medicinal pills, they were even more moved. The Yang Chen in front of him definitely couldn't be killed. In the worst-case scenario, the sect would have to rely on Yang Chun to seek medicine for the injuries of the 3 elders. Now was not the time to speak tough words. 3 masters of the Deshang stage, in any sect, would be a great force. Because of the discord with the small Chunyang Palace, because of the personal grievances between their own troublesome disciple and Yang Chun, they would give up the 3 masters of the Deshang stage. If they really made this decision, the master of the Taishaman sect would definitely be immediately ousted by a group of angry masters. To put it bluntly, the Taishaman couldn't stand Yang Chun. The cause was Li Qingchun's matter. But now Li Qingchun had already died, and Li Qingchun was clearly jealous of Yang Chun. At that time, with the identity of the late Foundation stage, he bullied Yang Chun, an outer sect disciple. It was really shameful to say it. Then, there was the destruction of the Taishaman's arrangement in the Chunyang Palace, and the plot to seize Chunyang Palace failed. The Taishaman were naturally also very resentful. However, strictly speaking, it was their own fault in the first place. Using this to reason with the Chunyang Palace, it was even more difficult to say. The Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect had 3 more masters of the Deshang stage, but the Taishaman had 3 less. In any case, this account was not worth it. The Taishaman could only bite the bullet and go to the Chunyang Palace to seek cooperation again. From the beginning, they were overbearing. Ming Guangruo arrogantly took Hall Master Mao to the Chunyang Palace to show off their strength to the front in order to interpret the secret key, and now they might even need to accompany a smiling face. The changes in the Taishaman simply made people speechless. Even the high-level members of the Taishaman sect couldn't keep their faces. Yang Chen had already gone to the extreme north to pick up Mubo's family. He was not in the sect. Many people could not find the main character and could only find the head of the palace. Those who dared to come to the door at this time were all big shots, and the lowest cultivation base was also in the late Yuanying stage. The purpose of the visit was naturally to ask for pills. Of course, above this realm, what everyone wanted to ask for the most was the questioning inner heart pill. Since Yang Chan said that he was willing to make alchemy for everyone, naturally he would not refuse. The head of the palace had already prepared the list of medicinal materials needed for the questioning inner heart pill. As long as they came up to ask for the questioning inner heart pill, they would send a list. Yang Chun had said in advance that he would prepare the medicinal materials himself. Yang Chun would not post his own medicinal materials to make alchemy for others. Everyone got the list of medicinal materials for the questioning inner heart pill. Naturally, they were also very happy and quickly prepared. At the same time, it was also a number on the side of the Chunyang Palace. When it was their turn, naturally it depended on when they could gather the medicinal materials, and at the same time, it depended on whether Yang Chun was free. Everyone did not come empty-handed. This was the first time they visited, and they were not familiar with each other. However, everyone prepared some greeting gifts at the same time. These greeting gifts were also very similar. Most of them came directly with a few heads. This made Su Qingxin surprised, and he could not help but wonder. Fortunately, everyone explained very quickly, and immediately Su Qingxin knew the origin of these heads. These were all assassins. It was said that there would be an assassination attempt against Yang Chun, regardless of whether it was done or not. Anyway, the reward for the assassination of Yang Chun was a capital crime. These masters came to the door, and by the way, they took care of a few assassins on the way and brought the heads just to show their goodwill. Of course, the high-level people knew why. The life of Su Qingxin of the Foreign Affairs Hall was simply like heaven these days. He didn't know how many masters with eyes above the top. In front of Hall Master Su, they were polite and even with a little flattery, tried to establish a friendship with the pure Yang Palace. This made Hall Master Su, who had always been able to smile at this level of master. How could he not feel a sense of pride? Originally, it was just the bottom of the second-rate sect. No one knew which day it would be casually annexed by a big sect, but now it had become the vanguard of the second-rate sect that people had to look up to. Although it could not be compared with a super sect like the Taishaman Green Jade Immortal Island and Blue Cloud sect, it was not a soft persimmon that could be pinched by others at this time. At this time, no one dared to have any other thoughts about Chunyang Palace. Who knew how many masters were in the dark, waiting for such an opportunity, and then used the heads of these crooked guys to please Chunyang Palace? The hundreds of assassins' heads placed at the gate of Chunyang Palace were clear evidence of all this. Chapter 792. Yang Chun and Gong Sunling didn't know what had happened these days. The two of them were on their way to the extreme north. In the territory of the monster race, Yang Chun directly raised the speed of his shuttle to the maximum. A few years had passed since the 30-year agreement with Mu Bo. Yang Chun was still afraid that Mu Bo was worried that he would break his promise, so the speed was very fast. Fortunately, for Gong Sunling's mountain river geographical map, the speed was not important. The places they passed were still recorded in detail, so it was not in vain for Gong Sunling to follow them. The ways of the Central Plains Dao sects had nothing to do with the monster race, and there was no news passed here. It seemed that everything was normal. With the speed of the shuttle, there was no ordinary monster race that could catch up with it. Yang Chun and Gong Sunling were very relieved. Of course, the biggest reason was that Shi Kuei and Xie Sha recently felt that there were some bottlenecks in their cultivation, so they followed the two out and went to the monster race's territory to relax. The two powerful guys at first did not have any systematic cultivation methods for them to cultivate. They relied entirely on their instincts to reach the Yuanying stage. Then they cultivated the transformation secret art, and their strength increased greatly. After Yang Chun brought back the monster race's cultivation method, the two of them really had their own cultivation method, and they began to cultivate step by step. With the integration of the fifth earth true essence, plus the cultivation during this period of time, both of them had reached the level of the late Yuanying stage. It was just that they were stuck in the threshold of the peak Yuanying stage and could not advance for the time being. In this realm, it was entirely because of the state of mind and nothing else. For the time being, they were reluctant to waste the questioning inner heart pills, so they came out with Yang Chun to take a closer look at the world of the monster race, which was also good for their cultivation. Whether it was the Dao sex, or the demon sex, or even the monster race, after reaching the Yuanying stage, it was not simply a matter of hard work that could be promoted. Reading 10,000 books was not as good as walking 10,000 miles. This was true for scholars, and the same was true for cultivators. Mu Bo's family was indeed developing well. With the cultivation method provided by Yang Chun and the spirit-gathering ray arranged by Yang Chun, even in the bitter cold of the extreme north, the members of their family still lived a very comfortable life. The Cypress family had the foundation that had been polished in the extreme north for thousands of years. Cultivating the cultivation method left by Yang Chun was simply smooth. They easily restored their original cultivation base and even began to attack a higher realm. For his young master, Mu Bo was convinced. Not only did Yang Chun bring them the direction of cultivation, but also let them see the hope of the glory of their family. Over the past 30 years, the Cypress family has cultivated the transformation secret art to a small success. At least everyone has been able to transform into a human body and walk on the ground. Although it was still possible to see the appearance of the big tree, it was a tremendous change compared to the past. Seeing that the day Yang Chun had agreed with them had passed, but Yang Chun did not come as scheduled for 30 years. However, at that time, it was said that after 30 years, everyone was not in a hurry. For these Cypress guys, 8 or 10 years was just a normal time. As for Mu Bo himself, because of the individual guidance of Yang Chun, he also absorbed a lot of branches and leaves of the Penglai Divine Wood. His outstanding qualifications seemed to be even more powerful. His cultivation soared all the way. In just 30 years, he directly rushed to the middle Jidon stage. Not to mention the realm, just on the combat effectiveness, at least the partners of the same realm were no longer the opponents of Mu Bo. In terms of combat, Mu Bo seemed to have a genius's comprehension. Plus Yang Chen's spot broadcast that year, even the Patriarch, a master who was infinitely close to the Yuanying stage, was now not the opponent of Mu Bo originally. The Cypress family's life was very good, but these days they had to face a big trouble. There was a Dao sect cultivator who rushed here and took a fancy to their family. The person who came was a Yuanying stage master. What was surprising was that when he saw them, he did not immediately kill them, but after releasing the pressure to show his strength, he asked them to submit. This kind of thing Yang Chun had done once, but even with the Yang Chun at that time, it took a lot of effort and even uprooted the Patriarch and Mu Bo, which made them convinced. As for being convinced, it was still waiting for Yang Chun to take out those cultivation methods and give them pointers to achieve the effect. The person who came up did not say anything and asked them to submit. How could the Cypress family agree? Not to mention that they had already promised Yang Chun to join Yang Chen's sect, Chunyang Palace. Even if there was no such thing, the monster race was free to cultivate. How could they put a layer of shackles on themselves so inexplicably? The other party asked for a reply within a few days, and now it was time for a reply. The figure of the other party also appeared in the mountain in front of them, but it was a sword suspended in the air, staring down at the crowd. Have you thought about it? Join my greatest heaven sect. If you want an identity, if you want a cultivation method, if you want resources, you'll have resources. It will be 100 times better than your bitter cultivation in this extreme north. This Yuanying stage master was a middle-aged man. He looked kind, he looked like a good person, and his words seemed to have a tempting element. The tree became a monster. It has always been strong, which has been shown by Gue Shanyu, the hall master of Chunyang Palace. Not to mention the performance in the great calamity of the demonic arts, just sitting in the 100,000 mountains, killing dozens of Yuanying stage masters who tried to make trouble, and even 1 against 2, carrying 2 Dashang stage row cultivators. His fierce spirit could be seen. When it was discovered that there was such a Cypress monster family in this extreme north, even a master of Taishaman was very excited. He was originally a Taishaman who went to the monster race site to recruit disciples of the Hall of Eccentrics. If he could bring this nest of Cypress monsters into the sect, it would be an extremely powerful combat force in the future. This kind of great credit, he would not let it go, especially in this bitter cold place. These Cypress monsters must be very outstanding. It could not be easily let go. Of course, to recruit the monster race to join the Taishaman, he must also treat them with courtesy and persuade them with good words. After all, they would also be in the sect in the future. Therefore, in the beginning, he still used a lot of benefits to tempt them. Cultivators, whether it was a cultivator or a monster race, didn't they all need the resources to cultivate their mind? Unexpectedly, the trick of trying and trying again and again had hit a wall in this group of Cypress monsters. The other party actually refused as soon as they opened their mouth, which made the Taishaman guys somewhat embarrassed. Fortunately, no one knew about it. It was necessary to teach these people a lesson and let them know how powerful the Taishaman were. Chapter 793. With a master of the Yuanying stage, to bully 100 native tree monsters who were only at the peak of the Jedon stage, it was simply bullying. In the view of this guy from the Greatest Heaven sect, this group of country bumpkins in the bitter cold land, They didn't know where they got a spirit gathering formation and arranged such a clumsy spirit gathering formation. They thought that this was a paradise. It was really stupid. How could they know how vast the world outside was and how many powerful masters there were? Killing them was just a matter of lifting a hand. When this 100-tree monsters were completely brought back to the sect, it would naturally be a great achievement. Moreover, the Yuanying stage master still had some things to do in this extreme north. It just so happened that after these cypresses were subdued, they were not afraid of the cold and could help him a lot. After waiting patiently for a few days, it was to give the cypresses time to consider. Today, he came here to wait for the reply of the cypresses. In his view, he reported the name of the Taishaman. Coupled with those temptations, even if they did not agree at the beginning, they would be loosened now. What the Yuanying stage master never thought of was that when he thought that he had already condescended to give enough face, these cypresses once again gave him a shock. I will not join the Taishaman. As a patriarch, he had seen the strength of Yang Chun, and then he looked at the style of this master, and naturally there was a comparison. Moreover, he had already made an agreement with Yang Chun, and he would not eat his words. In some things, the monster race was indeed better than the human cultivators. Don't give me face. The guy from the Taishaman was furious. These guys dared to not put him in their eyes. Today, he had to give them a heavy lesson. You don't want to eat a toast, only to drink a forfeit. In the scream, the flying sword of the Yuanying stage master had already flown out and went to the patriarch with the highest cultivation base. As long as this stubborn old guy was subdued, the others were naturally not a problem. Jingle, a clear and loud sound sounded, but it was the sound of the flying sword stabbing the body of the old patriarch. However, the body of the old patriarch was a strong cypress, and in this bitter cold land, it had grown for almost 10,000 years. The flying sword of the Yuanying stage master could not cut it once. Not only that, the flying sword that was stabbed into the body of the old patriarch was actually caught in the body by the old patriarch. A thick tree trunk incarnation's arm and big hand had firmly grasped the other end of the flying sword. The flying sword of the Yuanying stage master was completely controlled by the old patriarch with his own body and arms. Even if the Yuanying stage master used his spiritual awareness to control the flying sword, under the suppression of the old patriarch's steel-like body, he could not move at all. He wanted to stab deeper into the old patriarch's body, but the deeper he went, the harder the old patriarch's body became. With the quality of his flying sword, he couldn't go any deeper. He wanted to retreat, but he was blocked by the big hand of the old patriarch, and he was in a dilemma. In this case, unless the spiritual awareness of the Yuanying stage master was strong enough to take away the old patriarch with his own flying sword, otherwise, even if the flying sword could still fly, it would not have the slightest lethality. Moreover, the 10,000 years old cypress monster, it was not known how deeply rooted it was. How could a Yuanying stage master shake it with his spiritual awareness? Even Yang Chun, in the case of his feet on the ground, he used the mountain-picking strength of the yellow, turbaned strongman body refining technique, which uprooted the old patriarch. This guy wanted to do this kind of thing in the air. It was simply an extravagant hope. In one move, the flying sword was controlled, but the Yuanying stage master did not expect it. He thought that, as a Yuanying stage master, it would be easy to teach these tree monsters a lesson, but he did not expect things to be so difficult. However, after all, he was a Yuanying stage master. He immediately released his pressure and once again suppressed it. At the same time, there was another magic weapon in his hand. The Taishaman family was big. Every master who reached the Yuanying stage almost had a flying sword. Up to now, even if an ordinary flying sword was controlled, he had not used the flying sword. The resistance of the old tree monster made him look at it with admiration, and he was even more determined to conquer this nest of cypress monsters. This kind of powerful monster race, if he wanted to become his own people, and after a few years of training, it would be a great help. In the sect, he would definitely be able to improve his own status. This time, the Yuanying stage master took out a bracelet and threw it into the air. Suddenly, it turned into a huge circle and covered the body of the old patriarch. However, The circle was still in the air, and it was suddenly stopped by a flying sword. The Yuan stage master was stunned, but he found that this flying sword was actually released by a young cypress monster. The one who released the flying sword was naturally Mu Bo Yangchen's separate guidance allowed him to know how to sacrificial refine his own flying sword. In his previous life, Mu Bo's flying sword was refined from his own tree heart. In this life, Yang Chen's guidance was no exception, and it was still refined like this. However, after absorbing some of the leaves and branches of the Panlai divine wood, the quality of Mu Bo's flying sword was higher than in his previous life. Just because the time of refining was still short, the grade was not high. It only had the prototype of the flying sword. There was still a certain distance from the real flying sword. But even so, it could already fly out to fight. Under the control of Mu Bo, the flying sword embryo actually stopped the bracelet of the Yuan stage master in the air, and it could not fall. At first, the Yuan stage master was still somewhat careless, but after a period of time, his face could no longer hold back the surprise. This young tree monster was at most in the middle Jidan stage. He actually used an unformed sword embryo to fight with the magic weapon he controlled. Although he had not yet used his own flying sword, this was enough to surprise him. After discovering this, the Yuan stage master couldn't help but be happy in his heart. This tree monster was really strong. This was only in the middle Jidan stage, and it had such a level. If it really reached the Yuan stage, wouldn't it be easy to kill him? This kind of monster race with excellent combat power must be in his own hands. In the future, there would be a place for him in the top level of Tashman. Making up this idea, the Yuan stage master was even more excited, and he used all kinds of means. He must completely defeat this nest of cypress monsters. However, things did not go as he wished. After the old patriarch controlled the other party's flying sword, he also began to free a hand. Holding a thick branch, like holding a huge stick, he hit the head. He did not leave the slightest feeling for the Yuan stage master. Chapter 794. In the face of the huge stick of the old patriarch, the Yuan stage master sneered and did not avoid it. A helmet flashing with golden light quickly appeared on the top of his head, emitting a burst of golden light, and greeted it. Boom! The huge sound was accompanied by a pile of branches and leaves. Everyone's line of sight was covered in a piece of broken cypress leaves, and they could no longer see anything else. Insignificant skill, what can you do to me? The voice of the Yuan stage master sounded in everyone's ears, and it seemed to sound very calm. However, people who were familiar with the Yuan stage master knew that the more calm he was, the more angry he was. Two tree monsters in the Jidan stage had continuously made him disheveled. How could this kind of thing continue to happen? The Yuan stage master was also really angry, and it was necessary to give these cypresses some painful lessons. One chi capturing hand. With the Yuan stage master's shout, a huge transparent giant hand suddenly appeared in the sky and grabbed the cypresses on the ground. This was a blow with 80% of the Yuan stage master's cultivation base. He was confident that under this blow, these tree monsters who did not know what was good or bad would faint and be captured by him. Boom! The ground rose up and covered the entire sky with smoke and dust, mixed with fine snowflakes and ice, flying all over the sky. The original spirit gathering formation laid by Yang Chen was smashed by this blow, and the surrounding ground even sank a few feet. The power of this strike was simply astounding. But what was even more frightening was that under this blow, even the ordinary trees and even the rocks within the attack range had been broken, but the hundreds of cypresses were unscathed, making people unable to believe what they saw in front of them. 108 cypresses, who were only in the peak foundation stage, actually relied on a strange formation to block the Yuan stage master's capture hand. Looking at this number, it should be regarded as the Tian Gang Disha formation. However, the Yuan stage master had seen a lot of formations, but he had never seen such a magical formation. It could actually block a blow with 80% of his power. This was not the most ruthless. He was shocked by the defense of these country bumpkin cypresses. An invisible sword light suddenly penetrated the smoke and appeared at his feet. The person controlling the flying sword was very dexterous. Under his control, the flying sword was almost silent. In addition, it was originally refined from the heart of wood. Whether it was the appearance or the inside, it looked like an ordinary tree branch. It was very difficult to distinguish. The traces of his flight were almost the same as the branches that had been blown away, making it impossible for anyone to guard against him. The other party wanted to sneak attack a Yuanying stage master with a heavy and poor camouflage. In the face of the spiritual awareness of a Yuanying stage master in battle, this kind of sneak attack was simply meaningless. The Yuanying stage master even intended to directly destroy this flying sword, to give the owner of the flying sword an unforgettable lesson. The Yuanying stage master sneered and stood motionless in the air. He gathered all the spiritual power in his body under his feet and waited for the flying sword to fly over so he could stomp on it. The owner of the flying sword really fell into the trap. He directly chopped to the abdomen of the master and was kicked by the Yuanying stage master. At the moment of the kick, the Yuanying stage master knew that his kick was solid. The flying sword was instantly kicked and turned into an irregular sawdust. When he was proud, the Yuanying stage master suddenly felt a pain in his chest and abdomen. When he looked at it, it was a few pieces of fine cypress leaves like a dagger pierced into his chest and abdomen. The leaves of the cypress tree were very irregular, and they were in all directions. When this pierced in, there was a large piece of blood. Blood flowed out at the same time. The previous tree branches were simply a cover for the dagger made of cypress leaves. Not enough. These so-called daggers were simply leaves. There was no spiritual power fluctuations, and they could not be detected at all. The Yuanying stage master was furious. He was actually hurt in front of a group of Jidan stage tree monsters. How could he tolerate it? Under the rage, he couldn't care about anything else. He reached out and pulled out the cypress leaf dagger that pierced into his chest and abdomen. This action was a very natural action when he was injured. The next step was to immediately stop the bleeding with spiritual power to seal the wound and recover quickly. However, under his rage, he completely forgot the shape of the cypress leaves. The few daggers that pierced into his chest and abdomen were violently pulled out, and a few fist-sized pieces of meat were directly pulled out. The severe pain almost made the Yuanying stage master faint. Finally, his cultivation base was amazing, and he was able to endure it. But even so, he was unable to attend to one thing and lose sight of the other. He could no longer fly in the air and fell heavily to the ground. As soon as he fell into the formation of 108 cypress monsters. These guys were also really good. After the guidance of Yang Chun, in addition to their own cultivation in the past 30 years, they have been working hard on this formation. They have long been familiar with it. They could just take a blow from a Yuanying stage master. Now, they were attacking. They were even more unscrupulous. The heavenly spirits and earthly evil spirits formation passed down by Yang Chun was different from the ordinary one. The tree monsters that laid out the formation had a similar cultivation base, and they attacked and defended at the same time. Even if the other party wanted to break the formation, in addition to knowing the trick of breaking the formation, they could only break it by force. Breaking it by force requires a very strong cultivation base. In particular, it is necessary to seriously injure the 108 tree monsters under one blow. However, under the effect of the formation, no matter how strong the attack was, there were always 108 tree monsters scattered at the same time. The tree monsters were strong in defense, and they were rooted here. They could introduce the force into the ground at any time. The Yuanying stage master did not have a fire attribute spirit root, so he naturally could not succeed. Bang, 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 a series of attacks, almost every time, all hit the master of Taishaman. The attack power of the 108 tree monsters in the peak of the foundation stage. Although it could not kill the other party, it was not so easy to take it. In addition, the Yuanying stage master was still injured. A series of attacks made him even more unable to take care of his injury, and his defense was stretched, and he was in a mess. Finally, he survived the first wave of attacks of the formation. After all, the Yuanying stage master was a Yuanying stage master. He immediately followed the moment when the tree monster's cultivation base was not enough. He stopped the bleeding of the wound between his chest and abdomen, and then decisively called out his own life source flying sword. A group of shameless things, if I don't kill you. Do you think your grandpa is easy to provoke? As a disciple of Taishaman, he has always been used to being arrogant. He has never suffered such grievances. The injury and the loss of face made the anger of the Yuanying stage master rise to the highest point. If I don't tear you to pieces today, I will live in vain. The Yuanying stage master shouted. As soon as the voice came out, the old patriarch and Mu Bo's heart sank. Chapter 795. Launching the life source flying sword that was not to be left alive. How powerful was the Yuanying stage master's life source flying sword? Not to mention that the old patriarch could not lock the flying sword with his body. Even if it was locked, it was estimated that he would be driven by the other party's flying sword. The one who used the leaf dagger to plot against the Yuanying stage master was naturally Mu Bo. Not only did he refine the wooden heart sword embryo, but he also refined a few cypress leaf daggers. Under one blow, he really succeeded. However, the strength of the other party was too strong. There was no fatal blow. This was the most miscalculated place. Now, the Yuanying stage master has already called out his own life source flying sword. It was not said that some people in the family must also be sacrificed. Of course, Mu Bo would never watch his own people being killed. Even if he was going to die, he had to get enough. The other party's life source flying sword had already been sacrificed. Within a few breaths, he found a gap in the heavenly spirit earth evil spirit great array. With a few soft sounds, the 3 cypresses in the foundation stage had been pierced. Fortunately, the vital points of the cypresses were not in a certain part of the body. Even if they were injured, they could still barely mobilize the array. Mu Bo was anxious. The flying sword hurriedly attacked. Dozens of cypress leaf daggers also flew out, attacking the other party from all directions. A sneak attack could be successful, but it did not mean that the second time could make the other party be fooled. The Yuanying stage master just simply used the flying sword in front of him, and the cypress leaf daggers that flew to his side were cut into pieces. These daggers were just refined by Mu Bo. The quality was not high. In the face of the other party's life source flying sword, there was almost no fighting power. As for other people, except for the old patriarch, there was almost no flying sword. All of them still cultivated the cultivation methods and arrays left by Yangchun. By relying on the array, they may be able to resist for a while, but it would never be too long. However, whether it was the old chief, Mu Bo, or even the young tree demons, none of them gave up resisting. For them, since they had promised Yangchun that year, they were now members of Chunyang Palace. Even if they died, they could not join another faction. Even if we die violently today, Chunyang Palace will avenge us in the future. The old patriarch also showed his refined flying sword. With a loud shout, the flying sword slashed toward the Yuanying realm master. Even if they were no match for him, they would fight to the death. Chunyang Palace? The Yuanying realm master was stunned, and then became even more furious. It turns out that Chunyang Palace made the first move. Well, today I will send you to see the old ancestor of Chunyang Palace. After determining that it was the enemy, the Yuanying stage master began to kill madly. The natal flying sword, after cutting off the sword embryos of the old patriarch and Mu Bo, left a deep wound on each of them, and then flew flexibly into the earth evil Polaris formation. With every attack, the flying swords would cause several injuries. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, when more than half of the tree demons were injured, they were no longer able to maintain their formation. The Yuanying stage master was like a fish in the water. Without any decent resistance, even 4 or 5 tree demons in the foundation stage were instantly cut into several pieces, and there was no breath left. Fight with him. The rest of the people could no longer maintain the array, but the blood of each tree demon did not decrease, and they rushed forward without fear of death. Today, I will kill you, the remnants of Chunyang Palace. Let's see who dares to fight against my Taishaman. The Yuanying stage master listened to the shouts of the tree demons. His face was full of ferocity, and he was ruthless. He had already pierced a hole in the bodies of the old patriarch and Mu Bo, who posed the greatest threat to him. It was not that he didn't want to cut the two in half, but the bodies of the old patriarch and Mu Bo were so hard that even his natal flying sword could only be used to the sharpest part, and the blade could not work at all. But even if it was a ruthless person with a few more holes in his head, it was impossible to survive. This was the idea of the Yuanying stage master. After cutting the two foundation stage tree monsters at the waist, he pierced the chest of the old patriarch with a sword. When I kill you, I will send your bodies to Chunyang Palace. The Yuanying stage master completely had the upper hand at this moment, but his tone was still so ferocious. I want to see what kind of face the old tree demon in Chunyang Palace will have. Who is so boastful? Not waiting for the Yuanying stage master's voice to land, two muffled thunder-like voices sounded from a distance. From the sound to the ears of everyone, it seemed that the person who made the sound had already arrived in front of them. Two incomparably fierce figures appeared in the air, divided into the left and right sides of the Yuanying stage master. The Yuanying stage master was shocked. He just put the flying sword in front of him, and there was a mist rising under his feet. He didn't know what the origin of this mist was. The Yuanying stage master's body flew up quickly, but in such a short time, the original cypresses had disappeared, and he didn't know where they disappeared. Shi Kuei and Xiesha, seeing the faces of the two figures, the face of the Yuanying stage master could not help but show a shocked look, and his voice also trembled. There were 3 people in the Chunyang Palace Hall of Eccentrics. In addition to the old tree demon Gue Shanyu, there were 2 Yuanying stage masters, Shi Kuei and Xiesha. The 2 were the first to join the Hall of Eccentrics, and many masters in the sect knew their names. As a monster race, Shi Kuei and Xiesha also showed extremely strong performance in some later battles and won a fierce reputation. The master of the Taishaman dared to play in front of Mu Bo. In the face of Shi Kuei and Xiesha, he really did not dare to speak loudly. Hall Master Gue is also someone you can casually talk about. Shi Kuei smiled gloomily, and his eyes showed a fierce light. The opposite Xiesha also had the same eyes. The 2 guys in the Chunyang Palace, in addition to Yang Chun, the most convinced was the old tree demon Gue Shanyu. Now this guy dared to talk about Hall Master Gue behind his back. That was his own death, and he couldn't blame others. Whoosh, the Yuanying stage master did not say anything. He turned around and fled. Not to mention that he was alone. Even if there were 10 of him, he would not dare to face the 2 fierce guys, Shi Kuei and Xiesha, at the same time. 2 seniors. He killed several of our people. Don't let him go. It was the voice of Mu Bo, who didn't know where it came from. It was estimated that he saw the other party was going to escape, so he reminded Shi Kuei and Xiesha. Want to run? Shi Kuei sneered and directly showed his true appearance. A huge viper that was thousands of feet long. With just a twist of its body, it stopped in front of the Yuanying stage master. Its 2 huge eyes shot out a cold light, staring at the opponent who had been scared to death. Keep his life? Ask him what he is doing here. This time the voice was very soft, making people listen to it like a spring breeze. It was Yang Chun. Master, you are finally here. Mu Bo immediately heard the voice of Yang Chun and said loudly. Chapter 796. Good, Mu Bo, you dare to shoo at the Yuanying stage master. You are worthy to be my disciple. You did not lose my face. The figure of Yang Chun appeared in front of the seriously injured Mu Bo, and then a medicinal pill was directly stuffed into the mouth of Mu Bo. The fog just now was the means of Gong Sun Ling, who directly hid all the injured Cypress monster clansmen with the formation. After Shi Kuei and Xiesha scared away the Yuanying stage master, Yang Chun immediately appeared in front of everyone. A series of Lingji mushroom jade pills were sent down. Of course, it was a grade 1. The injuries below the Yuanying stage were almost immediately relieved. Even if the injury was as serious as the old patriarch, there were 3 or 4 holes in his body. He also recovered a trace of breath. However, Yang Chun and others were still a little late, At least 8 cypresses in the foundation stage were killed by the Yuanying stage master. Mu Bo, who recovered a little, looked at the bodies of those of the same race, and his eyes were red. The current Cypress monster family has not yet cultivated Yang Chen's transformation secret art. They only use the low-level transformation secret art of the banyan tree Immortal's cave. It can only be said that they could temporarily maintain the shape of a person. In most places, they could still see the original bark branches and so on, and they could be seen at a glance that they were tree monsters. But even so, Mu Bo's anger was still very clear. Of course, he would not blame Yang Chun for being late. He hated that his own cultivation base was too low, and he could not stop the guy's attack to save his people. The escaped Yuanying stage master, in the face of Shi Kuei's thousands of feet body, had almost no resistance. The fierce Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, with just 2 poisonous mists, turned the masters of the Taishaman who were still insufferably arrogant into a pool of soft mud and threw them in front of Yang Chun. At this time, the master no longer had any master's temperament, fainted on the ground, like a piece of rotten wood. Yang Chun looked at Mu Bo's expression. Up until now, although Mu Bo was still glaring fiercely at him, he did not make a move. Obviously, he was also waiting for Yang Chen's instructions. All the Chinkuan bags were taken away. Yang Chen also fed a medicinal pill to this guy's mouth. The blue jade vine wrapped around the other party, and the poisonous mist of Shi Kuei and Xie Sha was completely removed. Very soon, the expert woke up from his coma and discovered the abnormality in his body. His heart skipped a beat. To think that the other party did not cripple his cultivation and even left him the natal flying sword. This was a great opportunity. He immediately recognized Yang Chen's identity and naturally knew Yang Chen's current status in Qinyang Palace. In his heart, as long as he could restrain Yang Chen, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha would not hesitate to take action. In a flash, the master made a judgment. His body flickered and appeared next to Yang Chen. The natal flying sword was instantly held in his hand, and he put it on the neck of Yang Chen. Unexpectedly, the moment his intrinsic flying sword appeared, he felt a pain in his wrist. Following that, a bloody mouth swallowed his intrinsic flying sword in one gulp. The master was shocked and wanted to use his natal flying sword, but he found that the natal flying sword, which had always been connected with him like flesh and blood, did not respond at all at this moment. No matter how he urged his spiritual awareness, he could not use the natal flying sword. In the midst of panic, there was a sharp pain in his sea of consciousness. The connection between the natal flying sword and the main body was suddenly cut off, and there was no longer any connection with the natal flying sword. This time, the natal flying sword was lost, and the master's sea of consciousness was shocked. His internal organs were seriously injured, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His figure was also a lot of sluggish, and he could hardly stand anymore. Mu Bo, beat him! Yang Chun did not look at the guy beside him who had almost become a waste. He turned his head to Mu Bo and motioned him to start. Don't kill him. Leave him alive, and then beat him. Mu Bo would not be polite. He reached out and grabbed the master who had just been seriously injured, lifted him high, and then slammed him heavily on the ground. He went up and punched and kicked him without any mercy. As a tree monster, it was already very powerful. This hateful punch suddenly brought a sound of broken bones, mixed with the painful screams of the master, which made people who heard it change their complexion. The Yuanying stage master was a Yuanying stage master. Even if it was such a painful beating, after almost a stick of incense, he stopped screaming and fainted. However, at this moment, he was already dying, and he could see that he was exhaling more than he was inhaling. Take a break. Yang Chun stopped Mu Bo, then fed another medicinal pill to the Yuanying stage master and connected the broken bones of the master. For this kind of skin trauma, the effect of Yang Chen's medicinal pill was surprisingly good. In less than an hour, there was no sign of injury. However, it was only a physical injury, and the serious injury of the spiritual awareness had no effect. You continue. Yang Chen saw that the master had almost recovered, and he turned his head to Mu Bo again. Don't kill him. Mu Bo's eyes lit up, and he rushed up again. There was a burst of punches and kicks, and then there was a pig-like scream mixed with the sound of broken bones. After a while, it stopped after the master fainted. Yang Chun treated him again. After the treatment, Mubo rushed up and madly vented his anger. After a dozen times in a row, the Yuanying stage master almost did not dare to look at Mubo's eyes again. As for Yang Chun, even his voice could make the Yuanying stage master tremble. Change people. Yang Chen's voice once again made the master tremble, but it was the last decision he wanted to hear. Mubo was tired and happy, but the other Cypress monster families, including the old patriarch, have not made a move yet. This guy killed 8 members of the Cypress monster family, and almost everyone else was injured. Who didn't hate him? If it wasn't for Yang Chun, who had already beaten them, and the strength of Shi Kuei and Xie Sha also made them afraid, they would have already rushed up. Now, hearing the meaning of Yang Chun, it seemed that he intended to let them take turns, and it caused a burst of cheers. The old patriarch stepped forward and took over the position of Mubo. He began to madly use his fists and feet to ravage the other party. Killing this guy with a sword, how could there be such a feeling of punching the flesh that made everyone feel more comfortable? After the old patriarch was cool for a dozen times, he was replaced by another family member. The Cypress monster group behind had already started to line up, waiting for the moment when it was their turn. For more than 3 months, everyone did not do anything else. In addition to recuperating, they took turns to display their fists. In the words of Yang Chun, there were not many opportunities to beat a Yuanying stage master. Everyone wanted to be cool. As long as they didn't die, Yang Chun could always cure him and let everyone vent their anger. Everyone had to spend at least a day's time, and the guy who killed their people was knocked out dozens of times before they would stop and replace him. The Yuanying stage master of Taishimen directly fell into the hell of pain and humiliation. Chapter 797. A dignified Yuanying stage ancestor. Even if he was not ranked in the Taishimen, but when he walked outside, at least 9 out of 10 people would give him face and respectfully call him ancestor. Such a great master. When has he ever endured this kind of crazy torture? When has he ever endured the humiliation of being punched and kicked by a few country bumpkin tree monsters? Up to now, this Yuanying stage ancestor has not collapsed. It was a good habit that he had cultivated in the Taishimen for a long time. The master never thought that the punches and kicks would be so painful. In addition, Yang Chen's treatment of him was not so dedicated. As long as he could ensure that he did not die, the broken bones were only connected to the big bones, but those small bones were left in the flesh. When he punched down, the pain from the inside to the outside. Once or twice was okay, but dozens of times a day, just the pain would take half of his life. This was not counting the pain caused by the damage to his spiritual awareness after the destruction of the life source flying sword. Even if there was a little spiritual power, it would be completely dispersed by a wolf-like greeting, and there would be no struggle. Not to mention being able to protect the body, even analgesia, was a luxury. Escape? Under the eyes of Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, it was almost impossible. When he first met the 2 people, he escaped and was brought back. Now his whole body was injured. It was even more impossible. Sometimes he hated that he could not die under the fists and kicks of those cypresses, and he could also avoid this kind of torture. But Yang Chun could pull him back from the edge of the gates of hell every time. The medicinal pills used were very powerful. Even if he had been beaten half to death and only had a small half of life left, after taking the medicinal pills, his body could recover to its original state in half an hour. In just 3 months, Yang Chun spent this precious healing elixir on him, which was more than 100 times more valuable than the medicinal pills he got from the sect in his life. Even if you, Yang Chun, are the most talented alchemist, you can't waste this kind of pill like this, right? Almost counting the seconds, he had survived these 3 months. He did not want to experience such a nightmare again. When the last Cypress monster finished teaching him, the first sentence that the master heard when he woke up turned out to be Yang Chun asking Mubo if he wanted his people to start over again. He could no longer calm down and cried at Yang Chun. What do you want to know? I'll tell you. He never thought that as a dignified Yuanying stage ancestor, He would use such a tone to say such words to a junior in the early Jit-on stage. Even he himself felt incredible. But if he didn't say anything, it meant that he would have to live in this hell forever. Please, don't hit me anymore. In the process of Mu Bo's people teaching the Yuanying stage master, the Yuanying stage master wanted to confess more than once in exchange for not being tortured, but he was coldly rejected by Yangchun. He also understood that it was impossible to stop before these people took turns to vent their anger. Now, finally, everyone had a turn. This was his opportunity. If he didn't seize it, these uncivilized tree monsters would not care if he could bear that kind of pain again. What are you doing here? Yangchun sat in a very comfortable chair. Shi Kuei and Xiesha were sitting at the table next to him. There were a few beautiful dishes on the table. He was drinking with Shi Kuei and Xiesha. He listened to the Taishaman guy begging for mercy. He asked casually, "Don't tell me that you are here to recruit the monster race. In this extreme north, there are not many monster race." That one sentence completely blocked this fellow's thoughts of using this excuse to dodge the question. It was not that there was no monster race in the extreme north, but it was very rare. If the Taishaman wanted to expand their strength, they should look for a place like the Banyan Tree Immortal's cave where a large number of monster race lived, not this kind of snowfield where birds did not lay eggs. The sect let me come to investigate the situation of a monster race. The Taishaman guy knew that there was no way to lie and could only answer with a sigh. However, as soon as his voice fell, Yangchun had already rushed over and waved his hand and shouted, "Mu Bo, go and fix him." Mu Bo snorted coldly and directly stepped forward. He punched and kicked the Taishaman master, ignoring his argument. Just like at the beginning, he used him to vent his anger. After a while, the poor Yuanying stage ancestor was knocked out again. Gong Sunling just gave Yangchun and Shi Kuei and Xiesha another dish. These days, she just watched Mu Bo fight, but she didn't say anything. She would never object to her husband's decision. By the way, she sent a small pot of jade dragon wine to Mu Bo. Mu Bo respectfully took it and hurriedly thanked her. "Thank you, Master Gongsun." Mu Bo thought that Yangchun only had this one master's wife, but he didn't expect that there were as many as 4. He could only call them by their surnames, so he called Gong Sunling as Master Gongsun. After resting for a while, the Yuanying stage ancestor recovered again from his dying breath. But when Yangchun asked again, he still didn't change his original words. Yangchun was also very patient. 3 months had passed. Did he still care about more? Mu Bo's people took turns to fight, and almost after another round, the other party still clung to this reason and even begged for a quick death. It seems to be true. Shi Kuei and Xiesha's mind was straight. This guy has persisted for so many days, and even said so, it must be true. Alas, you don't shed tears until you see the coffin. Yangchun shook his head and took out 2 medicinal pills. One was seen by Gong Sunling. It was a first-grade inner sensing pill, but she didn't know what medicinal pill the other one was. She reached out and controlled the person, and the 2 medicinal pills were quickly poured into the mouth of the Yuanying stage ancestor. That pill can make people feel an unbearable itch. Yangchun smiled and explained to Gong Sunling, the inner sensing pill can improve his senses by 10 times, and he must be very comfortable now. During the conversation, the Yuanying stage ancestor who took the medicinal pill had already widened his eyes, and then the skin of his whole body seemed to begin to tremble. But he wanted to move, but he couldn't move. There was a whining sound in his mouth, and he couldn't say a complete sentence. "Mu Bo, you take your time to pack up your belongings. We are not in a hurry. Anyway, going back is also the same here." Yangchun slowly told Mu Bo, but in fact, he was saying it to the Yuanying stage ancestor who was suffering. This medicinal pill can have 3 days of medicinal effect. Fortunately, I refined a lot of time, about dozens of them. Give him one every 3 days and see how long he can persist. After saying this, Yangchun looked at the poor guy and suddenly asked Shi Kuei and Xiesha, "There are so many Yuanying stage ancestors in Taishaman. Even to find out the truth, do you need a Yuanying stage ancestor to go out?" Hearing this, the Yuanying stage ancestor on the ground no longer had the courage to persist, and his eyes began to have a lot of pleading, but he was suffering and couldn't say a word, which made people look extremely pitiful. Chapter 798. Yang Chun did not let him go because of his pitiful eyes, but let him suffer for 3 days after the suffering. When the medicinal power subsided, he let go of his tongue and let him speak. I am here to guide the disciples' cultivation. You can think about it. After dropping a sentence, Yang Chun took out 2 more medicinal pills and was about to send them into the mouth of the Taishaman. Don't. I'll talk. I'll talk. The poor Yuanying stage ancestor almost cried out and hurriedly shouted loudly. At this moment, Yang Chun suddenly launched hypnosis. Originally, this guy had been tortured to the point that he had almost no resistance. Now his spiritual awareness was injured, and he was tossed by the strange itch for 3 days. It was the time when his body and spirit were the most exhausted. When Yang Chen's hypnosis was launched, it immediately worked. Even Lady Fanghua of Yin Yang Demon School, who was good at confusing people's minds, had suffered losses in the hands of Yang Chun, let alone the Yuanying stage ancestor of the Taishaman. Compared with Lady Fanghua, his will could almost be said to be as weak as a piece of paper. However, Yang Chun still used various means before launching hypnosis. First, it was purely to let Mu Bo vent their anger. Second, it was to destroy most of his will. It was more convenient to use hypnosis. Very quickly, the hypnotized man revealed his purpose of coming here in full detail. It was also very speechless. This guy shouldered the mission of the sect. He really came to the monster race's territory to explore the truth and recruit some potential monster race disciples to join the Hall of Eccentrics. All the recruitment before the Cypress monster was to serve the sect. If it weren't for this guy's intention to make meritorious service for the sect, Mu Bo would have been slaughtered at the beginning. Yang Chun rushed over and could only see a pile of corpses. But this guy came here in addition to the sect's mission. There was still selfishness. In the sect, he was just an ordinary Yuanying stage master. Although the Taishaman also gave him enough status, it has not yet reached the core level. After all, the Taishaman were a big family. There were hundreds of Yuanying stage ancestors, and there were many masters of the Deshang stage. It was impossible for every Yuanying stage ancestor to become a high-level member of the sect. It was also a normal phenomenon that he was not valued in the Taishaman. The bigger the sect, the more things would happen inside, and some fights for power and profit would inevitably occur. Even the talented Sun Qingxue was plotted against by several masters of the sect. The Blue Cloud sect was like this, and the Greatest Heaven sect would not be any better. This fellow's master had passed down a secret from his grandmaster. In the extreme North Ice Plains, there was a small cave left behind by his ancestor. After thousands of years of accumulation, there should be some good things inside. In the past, it was not easy to come to the monster race's site. Now, with the sect's mission as a cover, he just came to take this Immortal's cave. Everything about the Immortal's cave was recorded in this guy's mind. This was passed down from generations of masters and apprentices. Even the sect did not know about it. After listening to everything, even Shi Kuei and Xie Sha showed greed in their eyes. There was still such a good thing. Coming to the extreme northern ice field, they could also encounter a small Immortal's cave that had been passed down for thousands of years. Although the Immortal's cave was not big, it was conceivable that there would be good things in it. Yang Chen's current vision could not be said to be a small Immortal's cave. He simply took Mu Bo's family and rushed there. The Cypress monster family has been cleaned up. In fact, for them, there was no property here. It had already been in the Chinquan bag. The reason why they had been staying was to completely vent their anger. After getting the confession, naturally everyone was on the road together. The body of the Cypress monster family all entered a medicine garden space that Yang Chun had prepared for a long time. It was full of spiritual power, and it was just right for cultivation. As for the old patriarch and Mu Bo, they followed Yang Chun and stayed in the shuttle. The Immortal's cave was still deeper in the ice field, further north than here. With the cultivation base of everyone, naturally they were not afraid of the cold. However, this extreme north was not necessarily without danger. Although there were very few monsters here, it did not mean that there were no monsters. And as long as there were a few, they were all powerful guys. They were all wild monsters who were honed in the natural environment. They were not worse than Shi Kuei and Xie Sha. Yang Chun did not want to find trouble now. If he could not provoke them, he would try not to provoke them. However, it was not something that Yang Chun could avoid if he wanted to. The shuttle only flew to the north for a few days, and it was stopped by someone. A few months ago, you sneaked here. What is your intention? A loud voice like a muffled thunder was heard directly. Even if Yang Chun and others had any greetings, they immediately started. A huge white giant bear figure with the size of thousands of feet stood tall, and the two claws were like two huge steel hammers, smashing down on the shuttle. This was the only way. Even if he knew that there was a great monster, Yang Chun must go. He thought that he could rely on the stealth of the shuttle to break through, but now it seemed to be a bit extravagant. This white bear simply turned the surrounding wind and snow into his eyes and ears. Without using spiritual awareness, he could also find the trace of the shuttle. Even if the shuttle was fast, it would eventually need to break through the flying snow in the air. The guy who was sneaking around was the poor guy from the Greatest Heaven sect. He subdued the Cypress monsters, but he did not want the Cypress monster family to block this white bear for him. He just didn't know how he provoked this bear monster, and when he met him, he would fight without mercy. Since the other party had already started, Yang Chen's side would naturally not be timid. Shi Kuei and Xie Sha almost shouted excitedly at the same time and rushed out of the shuttle. These days, they were bored on the shuttle. Someone sent them to the door to let them vent. Was there anything better than this? Shi Kuei and Xie Sha once again showed their fierceness in front of the Cypress monster family. The two people flew out at the moment when the sound sounded and went straight to the guy who made the sound. The huge palms slapped on the two people, almost without any impact, and even the speed did not weaken a bit. However, the two powerful masters have shown their original shape, a thousands of feet viper and a thousands of feet sand scorpion. In an instant, they fought together. Under the stunned gaze of the old patriarch and Mu Bai and others, the battle between the three Yuanying stage monster race only lasted for less than an incense stick of time before it came to an end. After Yang Chen's guidance, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha's strength surpassed the white bear. With brute force, they easily subdued the huge white bear monster and threw it in front of Yang Chun and Gong Sunling.